Hello everyone, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. Hopefully you guys are doing well. Happy Friday everybody. How's it going? Excited to chat with you guys. We're going to be doing live readings on the channel this evening. We're going to be doing live astrology readings. Do me a favor, if you guys can see me, give me a thumbs up on the stream. It's really helpful for engagement with the channel. It's going to let other people know that we are going live. And then I will get you guys in the queue. We've got a number of people waiting. So those of you guys who have already signed up, I will call your names. Please be patient. We've got like almost 20 people right now. So it's going to take a little bit of time to kind of work through these, but nevertheless, we will get to you. If you're new to my channel, welcome. I'm a Western astrologer. I work with tarot as well as astrology, and we alternate every other Friday, and we do readings by donation. We're going to be doing readings this evening, making predictions based off of what's going on with the transits, pulling your guys' charts up live, and talking about what you got going on. So hello to everyone. There is a line, and I'm only going to leave the opening for getting in line for about 15 minutes. So we're putting 15 minutes on the clock. After 15 minutes, we're closing it down. You have to either go through PayPal. You can scan the QR code here. It'll take you to PayPal where you can make the donation, or you can send a super chat. I just saw that Chris just sent one. So thank you, Chris. I've got you on my list. For the most part, we got everybody's information, their time. You guys are awesome. I was able to put most of the charts in already. There were a few people that I did not have all of their information. So I will be pulling your guys' charts up live. Some people are asking, how does that work? If you want to get a reading, I need to have a little bit of information from you that you ideally put in the memo. So when you scan to make the donation, you're going to send the $50 donation for the reading. Send me your first name if it differs from your YouTube name. And I also need to know your exact time, date, and location of birth. I use this to be able to cast your chart and then ask me your question. Please be specific. I'm going to say a big thank you to all the members and the supporters. I appreciate you guys. There's a long list, but we've got a lot of people to get to tonight. We are going to start with our level 3 subscribers and memberships. So those of you guys who are interested in joining my memberships, if you like my content, we're putting out a lot of content, long format horoscopes, new and full moon reports, and much, much more. It is a total 2-person team here. We work hard to put all this high quality content out for you guys. Your guys' donations, you guys getting readings, you guys joining my memberships, you guys make it possible for me to do this full time and educate on astrology and give you guys lots of cosmic support. So if you don't want to wait for readings and you want to get a reading once a month, you can join my membership level 3. It's the same price as getting a reading, but you support my channel, you're going to get a shout out and a big thank you from me. And you can check in any one Friday of the month to cash in on your tarot or your astrology reading, and you don't have to wait, which is becoming more and more and more valuable. Thank you, Vanessa. Thanks, Jen. I'll add you guys into the list. So here's who we have for level 3 that we're going to be starting with. So I've got Jen, Deanna, and Enchanted Crossroads. You guys are all level 3. Thank you guys for your support. Followed by these other people. So let me read you guys my master list. As I'm speaking, the clock is ticking down. So here we go. So we're going to be starting first with those 3. Then we're going to talk to Sunny, Susan. We're going to talk to Paula. We've got May, Alice, Vanessa, Michelle, Miss V. We're going to do Synastry for Amy, Maritza, Abby, Stephanie, and Christine. And then obviously we got the people who checked in, Jen and also Chris. You guys are at the bottom of my list, so hang in there. You can grab a snack and get comfy and a drink and listen to everybody else's stuff. And I just want to let you guys know it's going to be really intense, okay? So please, everybody, let's be nice in the chat. The astrology right now sucks. I'm not going to candy coat it. We've got like Mars, Pluto, Jupiter squares. So it is possible that somebody gets agitated, they have to wait. If you do, I'm sorry. If for whatever reason we don't get to you, or if we miss you as we're getting towards the end, please say something, because I want to make sure that everybody gets their reading. And let's be kind to one another, because the astrology is pretty gnarly right now. Okay, so thank you guys for my spiel. Oh, and one other thing, okay? I'm putting this out there now. I'm going to talk about it on my Sunday show, but I'll tell you guys first because nobody else knows. But I'm giving $15 off. I'm launching a new lecture webinar that's going to be all on the Venus retrograde because it is going to be wild, okay? Venus retrograde, retrograding over Regulus, square Uranus, square Jupiter, and the South Node is in Libra. So there is going to be lots of drama this summer. I just put it on my website. We'll pin the link at some point, but you guys get $15 off if you want to sign up for my live webinar. It's going to be like 2 or 3 hours long. I'm going to talk about how it's going to affect all the 12 signs and how it's going to affect lots of karma in regards to soulmates, twin flames, relationships, and just all of the financial and kind of world events. So if that's something you guys are interested in, check that out. Okay. Thank you, Stacy, for joining the crew. Okay, so let's go ahead and, without further ado, I'm not sure if Jen is here. I think she actually is here, but I think that she may have not been here. But here we go. Okay, so Jen says, I've got your birth information. I want to move to a new home. Where is the most generative place for me to move to? So Jen, I'm going to do my best to answer your question. I will say that I do practice astrocartography. I like to do relocation astrology, but the truth is that it's very specific. When I have a one-on-one session with somebody where they want to know where they should relocate to or travel, I sit down and ask them what they want to accomplish. We have to look at a bunch of relocated charts. We have to reconfigure your natal chart. So please hear what I have to say because I'm going to describe the opportune times for moving, what that space may be like, what to watch for. And then I did take a little bit of a peek at your astrocartography, and I'm going to ask you, where are you living now? And I'm going to rattle off some places that I think may be worth checking out. Okay, so hopefully that's helpful. Thank you, Rachel. We've got another 5-ish minutes, and then we're going to close the readings down. All right, so Jen, taking a look at your astrology here, I've got you October 21st, 77, and that was at 11:51 a.m., giving you a Sagittarius rising and a sun in Libra, and your moon is in Aquarius. So when we look at your astrology, I use Placidus. So your Placidus 4th house is Aries, okay? So this is talking about having your own space, right? Because Aries is what you initiate, what you find, what is yours, and something that you have to go looking for. So ideally off the bat, having at least your own space, even if you were to kind of live with other people, would be ideal. The ruler of this is Mars, okay? So I'm noticing that just recently here, the last couple days, you had your Mars return, which means there's lots of energy being built up revolving around home and living. Mars happens to be in the sign Cancer, which does deal with your domestic home zone, but you're getting hit because Mars is, reactivating the eclipse that we had in April. It's coming into a square with Jupiter, so there's lots of pressure revolving around where do I live, where do I go? And we want to see Mars in a better position before you make a move, okay? So I don't know if there's just pressure going on with a partner or with family, or there's some financial pressure because it's on the cusp of your 7th house, but it makes sense that there's something kind of going on here. All right, so let's talk about the kinds of places that would be best for you, okay? So being that Aries is on the IC, the most southern part of your chart, and the fact that you have the South Node there, I'd go as far as saying there may be a theme in your life revolving around moving and movement, because the South Node is about what we release and what we let go of. So the fact that that is conjunct your South Node, conjunct your IC, makes me feel like there's a lesson in your lifetime about knowing when to move away from a place, or when to go on to the next thing. And likely, because it's in opposition to your midheaven, where you have your North Node and Venus and Pluto, there is some lessons revolving around changes at home, changes with career, or changes with responsibility, or changes out in the world. So relationship changes and job changes significantly affect your living situation. And this seems to be a reoccurring theme here. All right, anyway. So you have your Aries IC, it's at a 17. So that is like a Leo degree. So you need to be somewhere where, like, for starters, ideally could be like a warmer climate, okay? It could be a drier climate. It could be a space that would be your own. So this isn't like a chart that would want to have roommates or a bunch of people that you're going to be living with. So you want to be finding something that is going to be self-sufficient. It's going to be something that's going to give you freedom. You're going to want to have authority of your own space. And Leo is also a place that's going to have lots of sunshine, or it's going to have lots of entertainment or activities nearby, and a place that you can feel like you can be creative with. Timing for when it would be ideal to move. If you're like, I know I gotta go, but where am I going? I was looking at the transits for when Mars starts making better aspects to your 4th house, and that's going to be right around the time that Mars is coming into a trine with your IC. So that's kind of looking like closer to right around the 3rd week of June. And that's when we're going to start to see Mars and Venus moving closely together, and it's going to start trining your South Node and also your IC. But it looks like it's going to be as a result of like figuring out how to navigate the financial side of it. Because these planets are going through your 8th house, so it's going to be about accessing, like, okay, dipping into savings, figuring out how to pay for the move, coming up with, you know, deposits or insurance or like resources revolving around your new space. From whole sign standard, this is also connecting to your 9th house. So it can be talking about moving like further away. So sometimes when I see transits through the whole sign 9th, sometimes when I see Jupiter in the 4th, this is when people are feeling a little bit more like wanderlust, or willing to say, yeah, screw it, I'll pick up and move across the country, or I'll move to another, you know, country altogether. So you've got that both working in your favor. Jupiter is going to be in your 4th house all year long, so it's kind of seeding this potential for you to be able to move into a new space, a bigger space, a space that's going to feel more comfortable because you have Taurus and Aries in your 4th. So I could see that the 3rd week of June. And then another time that I was looking at is also going to be when Mars is in a trine to Jupiter. So that's going to be the first week of August because you've got Mars in harmony with Jupiter, so it's expanding the home zone. The problem is that you're going to have a Venus retrograde, so I do feel like part of what's coming up here for you is going to be anything revolving around resources and finances and what you can afford. So my advice is if you're going to move, like mortgages or like biting off way more than you can chew financially, I would be very careful. And then down the road, when we have Mars come into Scorpio, and we're going to see a full moon lunar eclipse in Taurus, and that's going to be happening around October 28th, 2023. Now, in theory, because this is about completing something, this can be an indication that you are completing and you will have moved or gotten into your new space by then. If you wait that long, this will be the time likely that you're going to end up moving. And then also when I took a look at your astrocartography, there's so many comments in the chat, I'm not even sure if you responded in terms of like where you're living. But just some food for thought that I was kind of looking at. You were asking about like where you can go that's going to give you the most generative place. So I'm not sure what you mean by that. Your moon's in the 2nd house, so I don't know if you mean just like more beneficial overall. Okay, so you're in Illinois. Okay. So let me rattle off a couple places that I looked at that looked interesting that would be worth checking out. So you've got a Venus North Node conjunction near Memphis, Tennessee. And that's right at the top part of your chart. 9th house relocation could be good for relationships, could be good also for just changing the direction of where you're going, like with your status in life. You've also got a sun line, and that goes directly through Tallahassee, Florida. It goes directly through Columbus. You've also got a sun line that goes from the coast of the Carolinas, so think like Wilmington up to Richmond, and through Virginia Beach. Because you natally have a Saturn-based moon, and because your moon is in opposition to Saturn, Following like a moon line in some certain situations, I don't think would be the most ideal. So I'm like looking at over here where you've got Moon and Saturn going through the East Coast, not a fan. And you've also got a Venus line that's going to run pretty much through Corpus Christi all the way up through Austin and through Fort Worth in Texas. Which is also nice. And I'm bringing this up only because you're going to see over the next couple of years, Pluto's going to trine your Venus, eclipses are going to be activating your Venus, and you're also going to see like other transits that are going to support your Venus. So just some food for thought in terms of some places. You wouldn't have to go entirely too far from the Midwest. I would definitely check out some of the cities that I mentioned closer to like Memphis and maybe even those parts of Texas, or for, you know, business reasons, you know, the Sun and Mercury in and around Tallahassee could also be something that you could check out. The challenge is you're getting hit hard because we had an eclipse that was in Aries, and that eclipse exactly squared your Sun, which is about career with, you know, relationship with career, and also your Mars, so your relationships. So what you're going to see here pretty soon in July is when the North and the South node go into Libra and Aries, it's bringing the attention away from work, relationships. It's bringing the focus more so on how you are personally changing, and also like your home life. So there can be this feeling of sacrificing or letting go old relationships, and doing some of the same thing with your work. And this is like nesting energy. It's like, how can I work from home? How can I be closer to home? Where is my most comfortable space going to be? And finding a place that's also going to help you go through this really significant personal shift as the nodes square Pluto. Okay, hopefully that's helpful and gives you a little bit of food for thought. But definitely a couple windows this year, right? I could definitely see you moving. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Jen. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so we've also got Deanna and then Enchanted. So we are closing the queue in just a minute. And just for future reference, we generally don't do astrocartography for these readings because those readings are very involved and it takes a lot more than just rattling off a couple cities and being like, this is the best. You really want to take the time to do the relocated charts and stuff. And like, you know, people may potentially quit jobs and pack up and move their lives and stuff. And I don't want to ever encourage somebody to do that on a whim without really looking into it. But those are definitely some cities that you may consider looking at. All right, so let's pull up Deanna. And if you guys want to get in, now would be the time because we've got about 30 seconds and then we're closing that window. So Deanna popped in. What's up, girl? Let's see. Where is she? There we go. Anything to look out for with my adult kiddos? So we've got a Virgo and we've got a Leo. All right, let's take a look. So children in general are going to be connected to your 5th house. And you do have several planets here, right? You have your Sun here, Mercury, and Venus. I just want to double check, is this the right time? I'm using a different software, so maybe it just looks different, but I've seen your chart a couple times, and I don't know why something feels like it might be off here. Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? I guess that's right. 1:32. No, that's not right. Oh, no, wait. 7:55 p.m. Okay, so it is right. It's just, it looks different here than it does on my other software. Just wanted to confirm. Okay, my kids are doing great, but both at a crossroads, and I just want to support them. Okay, so here's the deal. You just recently had this eclipse, being a Sag rising, being a Leo rising, hello, in your 9th house, okay, where Jupiter is. So there's reactivations that are going on here. The truth is like, honestly, with Jupiter trine Venus, Whether it's like, you know, people deciding to relocate, people deciding to go back to school, people deciding that they want to, you know, change direction, also in regards to like their careers. The astrology is fairly positive. You know, Jupiter does very well in the 9th house, and with Jupiter trine Venus, I feel like that's more talking about expansion that's going on for your children, especially in regards to like their career endeavors or their health, their habits, and their schedule. And also it can be really great for like relationships, right? Jupiter moving into the 9th house can be a forecast of like, you know, them falling in love, meeting people, making significant commitments in relationships, that kinds of stuff. And then Jupiter is going to start picking up in a trine to your sun, which is going to be positive for both your daughter and your son, but the sun rules your chart. So do you have one of them that's like considering like going back to school or relocating? Is that coming up for either one of them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 9th house also represents 9th house represents grandchildren, and it can be about your children falling in love, or your children starting businesses, or your children taking chances in regards to their creative hobbies. So sometimes you'll see them go, well, I think I'm going to try to start my own business, mom, or, you know, I met this girl and I really like her. The transits are awesome. The only thing that I kind of wonder is the fact that, you know, your natal Jupiter is 29 degrees. So it is starting to, you know, feel the heat from Neptune. My daughter. Okay. And, you know, with Neptune coming into the square with Jupiter, there can be a sense of them going like, okay, well, you know, I don't know how I feel about my security, right? Because Neptune's hanging out in the 8th house. So it can be them having questions about, you know, how they're going to become more financially stable, or how they're going to be able to make investments, stuff like that. But it hasn't hit 29 yet. That'll be in about 2 years. And when that square happens, I think it's definitely going to be about whether or not they're following their goals in life. We don't want kids. Okay, perfect. She's in Europe and loves it. Okay. I think probably, to be honest with you, you know, your first child is your 5th house. Okay. And then that would be Jupiter. And then your second child is your 7th house. So I'm not sure which one is older. I looked at the dates a second ago, but you're going to see more happening with Jupiter that's coming into a trine with Venus for, I think, you know, your first child first. And then when Jupiter starts trining your sun, it's going to be for your second kid or your son. It could literally be, you know, your daughter and then your son, because both genders are kind of represented with those 2 planets. And the fact that you've got Saturn sextiling here is also telling me that like your relationship with them is becoming more about being somebody who is like, not a therapist, but somebody who's supporting them, somebody who's like, I hear you, you know, what's important to you. Like you're just going to be kind of reconfirming some of the things that they already know, and helping them make decisions that are going to be able to kind of firmly solidify their financial future, because this is, you know, 2nd house to your 5th. The girl's older. Okay. So yeah, so then Jupiter trine Venus is going to expand for your daughter, Venus. That's the first planet. And then it's going to trine the sun, and that's going to expand for the second. And I feel like there may be lots of joy revolving around you being closer to her, or you visiting her, right? Because Jupiter is your first kid and the sun is you. So the fact that Jupiter is trining can be about like you being able to kind of connect with her more, and spend time with her. Awesome. You've also got Jupiter that's trining Saturn. So maybe it's about like the pieces kind of coming together now, and like maybe your lives kind of starting to, you know, kind of intersect, even though you both went in different directions with making some decisions about your life. Somehow it's kind of bringing you guys together, and that you may end up seeing her more being over there. Where you're going to see some challenges is going to be like when Saturn and Neptune start squaring Jupiter, but that'll be in about 2 years. And then also when you start seeing the nodes come into a square. So this isn't going to be for a while, but you'll start seeing this in 2024 when the North and the South node are squaring the Sun and Venus. And that's going to be when they're both making like bigger decisions about, you know, how they want to look, where they want to live, their relationships, what they're, you know, valuing, what they're focusing on. Yeah, they're still about a year and a half out. And then some of that stuff is going to shift. And also it'll be interesting to watch you have a Jupiter return, square Saturn and Neptune. I think it's a lot of like talking to them about making decisions now, about making sure they're following their passion, but also being financially responsible. Because when you start to see some of the transits in about a year and a half, 2 years time, there is going to be a sense of being like, okay, well, hope you are going to school for something that you really want to do, because now you're on your own, you know. But I'm not really seeing any issues here. Something you will see later this year is there will be a retrograde that's going to start in Sagittarius, a Mercury retrograde. It'll be like mid-December, and it'll retrograde back into Capricorn, and it'll conjunct Mars. So I don't know if that means like maybe your daughter is going to come home and visit you, or maybe you're going to be like, oh, I'm going to be in the UK for the holidays. But once again, it doesn't have to be bad. That retrograde is, you know, it's going to trine your ascendant, and it's going to sextile all of your Libra. So you're definitely going to be reconnecting with one of them at the very least around the end of this year. Hopefully that's helpful. Feel that literally our conversation. So make sure they're getting an education for something that they can get a real big boy and big girl job for. You're like, I'm off having my own adventure. Bye. Hopefully that's helpful. Thanks for checking in. I hope you're doing well in the midst of all the fixed squares. I know it can be a bit of a doozy for the fixed rising signs. And thanks for being a member. I appreciate it. Okay, so we've got Enchanted Crossroads. Readings are now closed, so if you guys got in, don't worry. After I finish the level 3 people, I'm gonna read my list off and let you guys know who's on it. Okay, so Enchanted, I've got you here February 9th, 1977, and that was at 8:45 a.m. in Farmington. Is that correct? You know, I'm like double checking. Mercury's in opposition to my Mercury, so I'm having some blind spots. You gotta forgive me. I keep looking at charts and I'm like, is this right? So you have Aries rising, Sun in Aquarius, and your Moon is in Scorpio. Look at that. I like your 4 angles on the world cardinal points, the world axis points. I dig that. That's really big energy. Okay, cool. So I would imagine you're really big into like the equinoxes and the solstices, huh? Every like 3 months you feel the shift. I saw briefly what you were asking. So were you just asking, let's see, what's in store for you? You have anything in particular that you want me to take a look at, or you just want me to talk about the incoming square? That's pretty significant. I'm gonna roll with that. If you have a specific question, let me know. So you should know, if you listen to my videos, that this week 0 degrees of the fixed signs are like the hot zone right now. Okay, so the fact that you've got Pluto in conjunction to your natal Mars rules your chart is significant, because it's saying your goals are changing and there's something shifting about the types of people that you're interacting with. There can be some really difficult interactions with people. Like there can be a sense of like, you know, getting into it about philosophy and politics and your belief. And like there can be some intensity when it comes to some of your networks and some people that you're realizing aren't your people. When you have outer planet transits, your ascendant lord, you really embody that particular transit. And the conjunction is one of the strongest aspects you can have. So to have Pluto and Mars, which is about power and passion, come together in the 11th house, you're becoming very passionate about what your goals are, and you're wanting to connect with like-minded people. I also feel like this is going to be getting involved in other communities. That's going to be about like metaphysical, esoteric, spiritual, astrological type of things, because it's picking up the energy of like esoteric and bringing it into the 11th house. So I'd like to hear feedback, or I would make a recommendation to get involved with groups that are maybe studying, doing research, maybe looking at patterns in charts, and anything revolving that type of stuff. It can be about psychic development too, and like how you're learning from other people, how to better kind of hone some of your intuitive abilities in. But this is intense because you've got Pluto on your chart ruler. You've got Pluto squaring your Scorpio moon. So Pluto square the moon tells me that you could be having some intense exchanges with women. Some women that can be kind of catty or confrontational with that Scorpio moon in the 7th house. And then on the flip side, you've got Jupiter. How interesting to see Jupiter on your south node natally. So you're bringing in all of this like yummy kind of like knowledge that you're tapping into. Also lots of confidence, more self-esteem, more resources. And then the south node is hitting your moon. Oh, and by the way, like the next 48 hours, here comes Mars. So you're gonna have Mars at 0 degrees, squaring your 0 degrees moon, squaring Pluto and your Mars at 0 degrees, squaring Jupiter. Are you okay? How are you doing with that pressure? One thing I would say is that, boy, you really benefit from listening to like my general forecasts, because when I make the general forecast, I'm doing it in zodiacal order. It's literally from 0 degrees point. So a lot of what I'm saying probably speaks directly to you. You're kind of in a really significant period right now where I feel like the breakthrough is going to be about owning your talent and the willingness to market yourself, share with others. And the breakthrough is like knowing when you need to go your own way with Mars in the 5th, like creating your own business, not feeling like you have to be kind of thrown into the mix with other people, focusing on your passions, not letting other people take away from that. Heavy stuff. I mean, Pluto in a square to the nodes in transit for everybody right now is just like the cosmic pressure cooker. But when you throw Mars into the mix, you're going to be feeling like you're being pulled in 2 different directions. So my advice is if you're asking about starting a business is going to be more so connected to Saturn. And here we have Mars coming into conjunction with Saturn pretty soon. So yes, you have the opportunity to do that, but I would say there's like a period of initiating something, probably right around the first half of June, and then Venus will retrograde over Saturn. So it's about getting things in order, using the Venus retrograde to create all of the aesthetics behind it, or creating logos, or designing websites, or bringing in clients. And the biggest challenge right now is going to be peeling yourself away from other people, because Jupiter in the 2nd house wants you to make money. It wants you to bring in resources for your knowledge. Venus and Mars going into your 5th house wants you to focus on your talent. And other people aren't going to like that. If you are in a business where, you know, you're working with a lot of clients, Scorpio moon in the 7th is great for handling people in crisis, but you're going to have a lot of people that are going to get really adamant about wanting to get a hold of you when they want to get a hold of you, wanting to be friends with you. Like, there is a need to kind of remove yourself from the stickies and focus on like getting really serious about the way you're making money, and not allowing people to override some of the boundaries that you might have in work and also relationships. So you're gonna have some clients that you're gonna have to be like, this is the price, this is how you schedule, this is when we start, okay, your reading's over, thank you very much, have a good one. And not allowing other people to invade your psychic space, which is such a theme with Pluto on your Mars, and also with Pluto square your moon. You're gonna see some really intense exchanges, probably with female clients, and you're probably also going to see that with some of your friends, where you're going to learn not to drain yourself by just giving readings or just giving advice and like letting people take advantage of some of your talent. That seems to be like the biggest challenge that you're going to have. Know that the Venus retrograde is going to be more about setting up the aesthetic. So you're going to see in like August, September, it's kind of bringing the pieces together and trying to get things running, you know, moving forward, and in a way where you have a schedule and you're doing that work. And then you're also going to have a retrograde later this year. So treat the retrograde, Virgo in the fall and Capricorn in the winter, as times to get organized with a goal of being like, this is a full-fledged thing. This is a real business come the new year, if that makes sense, right? Difficult stuff. It's difficult stuff, especially, you know, being somebody like you who's got a lot of Aquarius in your chart. So there's been a lot of experiences about giving to other people, working with other people, being a part of a group. And I'm going to tell you right now, now is the time that you have to be more selfish. I know you don't want to hear that, but you have to be more selfish because the retrograde in the 5th wants you to focus on your talent, and Jupiter-Uranus meeting in your 2nd house next year. Financial freedom is on the way. All you have to do is find a way to make money unconventionally. So it's very doable. And I think that you'll be really glad that you took these periods this summer and later this year to really get more so structured. So that way you can really see things evolve the way that you want it to evolve. I'll tell you what my astrologer told me. So because you have 0 degrees on all 4 points, these are known as the world axis points. This is about visibility and it is about recognition, okay? So people who have 0 degrees on all 4 angles, I've probably only seen it 5 or 6 charts my entire life. But you and I are one of those people. So it's this weird thing where it's like you're going to keep having opportunities for things to pop up where you get your moment to have visibility and you have the opportunity to shine. So be mindful that when outer planets are getting close to these degrees, that's when you're going to start to see this stuff kind of pop up. And over the next few years, Saturn and Neptune are going to get really close and you'll have the opportunity to be like, I am a professional mystic and I did it on my own. Look at me go. So something is setting up. And I would say really look at what you've been studying and working on the last couple of years while you've been in hermit mode. Because you have an opportunity to like fully reinvent yourself and come out in a way that I think can be extremely, extremely powerful. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Cool chart. All right, so let me get back into my queue for those of you guys who have been waiting. Thank you, thank you, thank you. A lot of you I already have in my software, so we're only gonna have to take one break in a little bit. Okay. Ooh, Wendy snuck in there. A couple people snuck in there. Holy smokes. Okay, so let's get the show on the road. So this is who I have on my list. I'm going to call about 3 or 4 people at a time so you guys know your reading is coming. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and start with, in this order, this is who we're going to be seeing. Sunny, Susan, Paula. We've got May, we've got Alice, Vanessa, Michelle, Miss V. We're going to do Synastry for Amy. Maritza, Abby, Stephanie, Christine, Danielle, Rachel, Christine, and who is this? Sihaben? Am I saying that correct? Sihaben? Wendy, and yes, we have people who are, once my charts need to be reset, I'm going to take the people who are on the super chat. So if you made a donation, you will be on the super chat. What's up, Wendy? So yeah, guys, if you're like on the later part of the list, it's going to be at least an hour. So get comfortable. Looks like we've got Jen who joined, Stacy, and we had another one. There we go. And Chris. Okay, thank you guys. Please make sure you're subscribed. Give me a thumbs up and like the video. It would be really helpful. All right, so let's get on with this list. Okay, so we're going to see Sunny first. All right, Sunny. So looks like your info is January 20th, 1981, 6:03 p.m. And that was in Panama. So you're a Leo rising, Sun in Aquarius, and your moon is in Leo. So you were born on a full moon. Okay, so my name is Sunny. Between having Sun at 0 degrees Aquarius and being a Leo rising and moon, I feel like this new moon along with Mars and Leo transit is very big. My question is, what energy do you suggest I embody to best work with this energy, or what should I be focused on to stay grounded and trusting that everything will work out? I like it. Okay, so for starters, excellent questions. It sounds like you're super aware of what's going on in your chart. Obviously, the sun is incredibly important, right? So when stuff's happening to the sun, that's what we really want to focus on. So I'm going to talk to you a lot about the fact that Mars ingressing into Leo is opposing your sun. which also means it's opposing Pluto. So Pluto's coming into conjunction with your sun in the 6th, which means your job can be changing, your schedule can be changing, your habits can be changing, and it's at a 0, so it's a fresh start. And Pluto says we have to kind of burn it to the ground before we start over. When the Sun-Pluto conjunction is happening, which is going to be off and on literally for the next like year and a half, it represents a period of time where your ego is going through a shift, your body can shift, equally your health can shift, because by Placidus standards, your sun is in the 6th house. So you want to pay attention to your heart space, right? Emotionally, but also physically. Be mindful that Pluto can also bring up some power struggles with people at work. And as Mars is coming into Leo the next couple of days, right? Mars rules your emotions, your home and your family and people in other places. Oppositions are always relational. There is something about the shadow that is coming out and challenging your daily routines and your habits. When Mars is in the 12th house, we can have frustrations, we can have repressed anger, there can definitely be restlessness and trouble sleeping. And the 12th house is about the spiritual or the, I guess like the higher self, and the, not the emotional body, but like, yeah, like the psychic body and the effect that it has on the physical body. So literally, up all night, no sleep, restlessness, you know, getting irritated, like that can have a significant effect on your health, your habits, and your routine. I would really pay attention because like I've said, this Jupiter at 0, Mars at 0, it's all forming squares. And what you're gonna hear for Leo risings is like, oh, it's totally shifting and changing your career, your body, your relationships, your home. All roads do lead to more focus on growth within your professional life and also growth within your relationships. But I think it's going to come down to, you know, clearing out some of the problems first. And in your chart, the sun rules you. So a lot of it can be learning to get out of your own way and cutting out some of the negative habits, patterns, making the changes at work, making the changes with your relationships, also with coworkers, men, right? The sun can literally be men, to make it easier for you to go through some of the shifts that you need to be going through, like professionally. I would also watch when Mars sits on your moon. And then it's going to sit on your north node. Now, that's not unusual. You'll have that happen about every 2 years. But when it happens, there we go, around June 5th, through the 7th, it's going to happen while you have a Moon-Pluto opposition, okay? So I'm wondering, like, do you tend to have, like, conflict with other people and then suddenly go, oh, you know, now I need to be alone and I need to retreat and I need my space because, you know, people are too much? Because the North Node Moon, the comfort space, is going to be somewhere private. If you're getting overwhelmed with interactions with other people, there's a need to like go deeper into a private space where you can create. I love Mars in the 12th house for like dancing. I love Mars in the 12th house for shamanic work. I love it for, you know, turning on a hot sauna or burning some incense or something where you're bringing in that fire with Mars and allowing yourself to kind of like be cleared with like smoke or steam. That might be really helpful throughout some of these transits over like the next, you know, the better part of the next like week or two. Literally now through early June, all of these planetary squares are indicating that everything is about to be revealed that is not healthy for you. People, patterns, places, so on and so forth. And when these things start to come up and you feel like, okay, I'm either going to freak out and explode, or I'm going to, you know, go into my private place, go into your private place, find a way to be able to, you know, chant, dance, work with the fire element, work up a sweat. Maybe it's going to be about doing something creatively behind the scenes, right? Something like that, to make it possible for, you know, for you to be able to find a way to kind of diffuse. The other thing is Jupiter's moving through the top part of your chart. So it looks like some of this stuff might be that you're, you know, doing creative work behind the scenes and focusing on building big, you know, bigger things, which may be taking you away from certain relationships. That's the other way that that can kind of play out. Looks like this is going to be the most powerful until we get let's say, you know, Jupiter out of the square with your nodes, and then even then it will retrograde. So between now and July, and the truth is that when Jupiter gets into the, you know, the 10th house and it's squaring the nodes, these are good problems to have. You're going to have growth in your career and more visibility, and you're going to be focusing more on having fun and creativity. And it's about not letting other people steal your happiness, steal the spotlight, not letting other people interfere and create some strife, because it's going to interact with your natal Mercury Mars, which tells me that there are going to be some people who are going to push back on some of the success that you're going to have, or some of the exposure that you're going to have, or just feeling like, you know what, I'm on a roll, you know, things are going very well. And then you're going to see over the summer, some of the retrogrades is also going to bring you back into a place of reflecting and wondering or questioning, you know, why certain people can't stay around. So hopefully that answers your question. I know that it's kind of complex. You've got a number of things happening all at one time. Really work with the element of fire while you've got Mars going through your 12th house. I think that's going to be the best way to kind of navigate this, and recognize that this is bringing up the natural polarities in your chart. So because you have a you know, moon in Leo and a sun in Aquarius, you were born on a full moon, okay? Just hours after the full moon, you know, you were born. So you have that polarity, and even more so, adding on to that, you also have, you know, the North Node on your ascendant, then you've got all this Aquarius on your descendant. So you know the balance, right? That sometimes the balance can be so overly affected where, you know, other people can be too much and you need to kind of take a step back. And Leo is about talent, charisma, creativity, joy, life. And Aquarius is about, you know, what's futuristic, different, unusual, and kind of chaotic. So when you start to see that chaos coming through other people, you want to use the slingshot to go deeper into Leo and find ways to be able to get lost in your own creative world. So you don't fall into patterns of undoing, because if you have tendencies to do that and self-sabotage, they're going to become more visible. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Okay, let's see. So we've got Susan. Thanks, Christine. We're doing donations, though. It's going to be $50 for astrology questions. And unfortunately, we already closed the chat and the signups. Let me see if there's something we can do about that. Otherwise, we can give you a credit. Okay, so let's see. Am I missing anything? Missing anyone? Okay, here we go. Eshwa, if you donated, it needed to be the 50 for a reading, unfortunately. I'm sorry, but that is the donation. Sorry, I'm catching up on the live. I'll have the moderator do that because I cannot multitask. All right, so we've got Susan here, and Susan is a Scorpio rising, sun in Libra, moon in Aries. I know this is hitting some of my planets. I hope it's not bad, because I'm really not sure how much I can handle. I really need a regular reading from you. So many things have happened. Susan, I always love talking to you. You have the same combination as me. I'm a Libra rising, but I have an Aries moon and a Scorpio sun. So when you're feeling it, I'm feeling it, girl. We have the same big three. So a couple things. You know, Mars is your chart ruler, okay? So Mars and Pluto transits, you feel it. And my dear, you happen to have Mars in Leo, so this is one hell of a Mars return for you. So with Scorpio rising charts, because your chart ruler is Mars, when you have your Mars return, it's very potent. So think of this as like you're putting on your armor, okay? And you're going into battle, but it's on your home turf. So it's fine, you were born for this. And you, once again, you were also born with Mars and Saturn in opposition. So you have this natal opposition to Saturn and the South Node in Aquarius. So North Node Mars, like, you know how to fight, right? You know how to like give it to someone. The challenge here is that you've got Mars in Leo in opposition, not just to your South Node, not just to Saturn, but to Pluto. So this tells me that the challenge might be about travel. It might be about education. It might be legal stuff. The list goes on. So really it's going to depend on your natal Mars return. I personally look at this and go, you should already know what this is about. Okay, if you go back in time and you look at the last time that Saturn was in an opposition to Mars, off and on in 2020, drama with neighbors, right? You know, communication with a kid, because Saturn happens to be in your third house. Contracts, moving. These are the themes that seem to have come up from the Saturn transit. So now here comes Mars, your Mars, opposing Saturn and Pluto. And Mars is at the top part of the chart. So you have dominance in a way. Mars is also within 3 degrees trining your ascendant. It's also coming into a sextile with Mercury. So you're going to be able to communicate and express yourself. I mean, I'm not going to candy coat it. These squares suck. It's the way that it goes. So you're really just feeling the energy within your Mars return of Pluto in opposition to Mars. The key here is to be mindful when you're communicating, read the fine print, be very careful with traveling. It's interesting that you're talking about grandkids because the 9th house is about grandchildren. So for Mars to go into the 9th house and oppose Pluto, it can be about the emotional turmoil that can come or you know, come about as a result of not communicating or connecting with them. The squares to Jupiter may bring some kind of family member or relative into some realization about, you know, whether or not they feel bad or whether or not they're going to, you know, initiate contact or let somebody say something. You've got other things going on beyond that. You know, Saturn's in your 4th house right now at the lowest part of your chart. So it does feel like kind of going through mud. It's heavy, it's emotional. And you're definitely, with the Saturn in the 4th house transit, going to feel the stress revolving around strain in relationships with siblings. Now, or relatives, excuse me. It can be parents, can be siblings, can be children. This is your whole sign 5th. So it makes sense that there's something going on with kids that's affecting grandkids. The truth is that it's a period of time that will pass. I would be most aware actually when you get to next Wednesday, the 24th, when Moon Mars come together and it's going to oppose your Saturn, square Jupiter. I almost wonder like if one of the kids are going to want to talk to you and ask or bring up whether or not they can, you know, call you, reach out to you, speak to you, because that conjunction is going to happen and it's going to trine your moon. Then we start to kind of come out of the tension when Mars comes out of that square. So that's going to be closer to the beginning of June. This will heat up again when Venus comes into the opposition. So that'll be June the 7th until Venus comes out of the square with Jupiter. And that's going to be around the 11th. And then finally, Venus will retrograde in Leo, and it's going to come into a conjunction with Mercury. Okay, so it's going to be around the end of July. And it's also going to come into a conjunction with the sun. And I wonder if there's going to be a reunion that you're going to have in August or a reconnection with a granddaughter, okay, because it's Venus. So something about that makes me feel like there is a connection or a reconnection or something that may happen right around August time. Especially because Venus is going to trine the North Node in the 5th, helping you connect with kids. And you're also going to see trines to the moon. Right? Just for fun, so your actual Mars return will be on the 21st, and I'm too old to get her. Okay. This is your Mars return. So Mars is actually going to be in the 6th house, which it can be about accidents. It's in opposition to Pluto, so this is about how the mental affects the physical. And you've got Mars that's in a square to Jupiter. Okay, 3rd house squares to the 6th house Mars can be accidents. Car accidents, it can also be accidents involving horses. Also, people who manage or take care of land, or people who manage and take care of vehicles or animals, that's something else that I would watch for. But I don't think it's going to be just this, because the Mars return is going to stick for about 2 years. You're going to see more when the moon goes into Leo. So like I said, next Wednesday is when you're really going to start to kind of feel the shift. Uranus is the ruler. It's at the 4th, next to Saturn. Saturn's trying Venus. Saturn's trying the South Node. Yeah, just if there's any like legal document, legal paperwork, anything like that, I would watch for that too. Like really anything that anybody hands you, you have to thoroughly read through that. Because something about this North Node, Jupiter, Mercury makes me feel like you have to be mindful of what you need to read. And also how you communicate with people, right? Because the square, the focal point of the square is all in your 3rd house, communication, how you speak to others. And I have a feeling it's going to be about somebody kind of coming to you and trying to communicate with you, and it's going to be how you respond to them. For Scorpio risings, especially the late degrees, you know, you guys still have, you know, Pluto going in and out of your whole sign 3rd. For you, Pluto is moving into your 3rd house. So it's going to be about how you're communicating with people. And Uranus is now coming into an opposition with Venus. So yeah, it's not the easiest to get along with people, but to be honest with you, North Node Mars makes me feel like you were born for it. And it's about, you know, when to stand up for yourself, and also like when to basically just put your heart on the line and be like, hey, this is how I feel. It doesn't have to be like combative or confrontational. But there's other things going on here. You know, there's some family drama for other reasons. It's Saturn. Saturn is in opposition to planets in the 10th house, and it's going to be about people or kids or, you know, relatives who aren't going to want to feel like you're telling them what to do. So be mindful when you're communicating with them, you know, how to approach that, because there's some people who are going to be really sensitive to how you communicate with them. Okay. You'll see that again when Mars gets into Scorpio, by the way, later in the fall. So anytime anything's hitting like the first 5-6 degrees of the fixed signs, so here, 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 here. You had this in April too, right? The eclipse that we had also squared this. So the kind of the finale is going to be Scorpio season when Mars goes through here and it squares it, and that'll kind of clear things out. Godspeed. It'll be fine. Just be very mindful as you're moving around. That's the biggest thing that I can see. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Susan. All right, so we've got Paula. And then after Paula, we're going to have May, Alice, and Vanessa. All right, so let's see. So Paula says, okay, here we go. There we go. I want to know which day, hopefully soon, would be good to open investment accounts, make positive money moves. In the past few years, I've transformed the way I manage my money for the better. I've done a lot of research on what to do with my money, and I want a good astrology day to feel better about the outcome of the moves that I want to make. All right, so word to the wise, I have to say this. I'm not a financial advisor. All of this is for entertainment purposes. Oh, sorry, I'm moving this around on you. Should have done that. My bad. Okay, so when I look at your chart, obviously Mars aspects are really important because you are ruled by Mars. So a lot of these incoming Mars-Pluto squares do affect you, okay? It's interesting because you've got Jupiter, which rules your money, in the sign of Taurus, and it's coming into a square with Pluto, okay? So this is all about scheduling, timing, being on top of things, analyzing, assessing. The 6th house can also be about people who help you. So part of it can be about you being like, hey, give me a good date to go and do the things that I want to do. But it also might be that you go and talk to somebody about your investments. You go and talk to somebody about your financial strategy. Possibly you make the decision that you're going to, you know, go and work with a financial advisor and hand some of that money over and like put it into, you know, like a stock account or something. So that's something to consider, even though you're educating yourself. 2, Jupiter is the focal point of Pluto. Okay, so it's all about how you think about your resources, and it's also the focal point of Mars. Here's the deal. Losses is more 8th house. So when you have like, you know, the sun or, you know, Mercury or other planets go through your 8th house, and starts squaring all this Pisces you have, there can be a sense of realizing like, oh, I took a chance on something and, you know, I didn't see everything. So be very, 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 very careful right now, because all of the Pluto, Jupiter, Mars squares are going to be about a lot of money going into the market, right? North Node, Jupiter in Taurus. And it's also going to be about people gambling, and there's going to be like really high highs and really low lows. People are going to be betting both ways against the market. That's what I think. Anyway, we want a good Jupiter transit. So I'm thinking something like when... obviously, a lot of this is also going to depend on the market. So if you're waiting for things to like break down and you're like, I want to invest in something, you have to be willing to take those chances, but don't be willing to invest money that you don't have. But specifically when we're looking at aspects from Jupiter, I would say something like, let's see, Mars is going to sextile your natal Jupiter. I could see you possibly taking a chance on something right around May 24th, because you're going to have Moon with Mars coming together. It's going to sextile your Jupiter and your Mars, and it's going to trine your Sun, which is about taking chances. Even that day, I'm not thrilled about, okay? But you have the aspects that do make me think that you might go, okay, I'll put a little bit of money into this thing. However, things get a little bit more solid in terms of making investments when we see some positive aspects involving transit Jupiter. So I'm kind of thinking like when the Sun is sextiling Jupiter and Mercury is also coming into a trine with Saturn. So the end of June looks a little bit safer. Keep in mind though, we're going to see some Venus-Uranus squares. So myself included, be careful with whose advice you buy. Because to me, this seems like you're going to be like, okay, I'm getting ready to make moves and so told me to do this thing. And it might have been really amazing or it might have been like really crappy. And it also is going to be specific depending on what you're investing in, right? So that's the other thing, because I'm not sure what you're investing in. Investments are more going to kind of stem from, you know, the 8th house ruled by Mercury, and you've got Mercury in the 5th, which is going to be, you know, what does your intuition tell you? Mercury in Pisces isn't clear. Investing in art is something that I would say maybe consider, especially some of those things where I know they have, I can't think of the company, but I know that they're doing like art investments where they'll take like a really well-known artist and you can invest so much money into an art piece, and then when it sells, you get a piece of it. That would be good with this chart, with Jupiter sextile your North Node in Saturn, with planets that are going to trine your 5th house. That would be a great investment, I think, especially looking at the fact that your whole sign 5th of art and speculative is Pisces, art. You've got Venus there, and you've also got Saturn that's going to sextile the natal ruler, Neptune, in the 2nd. So literally being a part of a community art share might be a really, thank you, Masterworks, might be a really good idea. If you go and you do your research and you find the right person that you potentially want to do that with. The other way to play this is that you've got the North Node and Saturn that are meeting in your 4th house. So, you know, with some of the sextiles that are happening to your 2nd house, this is a chart that's like, do I invest the money in property or real estate, right? It's the other way. Jupiter rules your money house, and it is currently in the 7th natally. So with Jupiter and Mars in conjunction, you have to be really careful with whose advice you get with finances. You're going to have people who are going to tell you like what to buy, what to invest in. And I would be taking my time throughout this year in how you invest that. I wouldn't put it all in one basket, because Saturn is having you think more seriously about the long-term life you're trying to build, and it's going to help you be more cautious about making investments and not just take anybody's advice on, oh, you know, buy this thing, invest on this thing, do this, do that. Real wealth, like power, is going to be Pluto. And one thing I can see is next year, when Saturn's coming into a trine with Pluto, if you play your cards correctly, you're going to be in a very good situation to where I think you're then investing even more money, which is going to be next spring. And I've been looking at some of the markets. I've been looking at the stock market chart. I've been looking at the United States chart. You know, everybody's talking about the stuff that's going on now. you're going to see stuff fluctuate this summer. Okay. I think that you're going to see them try to stabilize things, but we're going to start to see the cracks financially really like the end of August, beginning of September. But really next year is the big kaboom when you see Jupiter and Uranus come into conjunction in the spring. So bigger breakdown 2024, 2025. So I would be saying, be smart, be careful with your Saturn squares this year. Don't invest all of your money in one place. Don't necessarily take one person's advice. You need to ask a couple different people. And you may find some amazing opportunity when you have Jupiter also sextile your Mercury. And this is why I feel like it's a good idea to consider going and talking to somebody about an investment strategy. This is going to be Jupiter sextile your Mercury. You're going to start feeling it like July, August, right here. And I think that Jupiter in the 8th, in the 6th is a good time to go and find somebody who's going to be like, okay, so what do you have? What do you want to invest in? How do you want your money to grow? And because you've got Saturn, Neptune, Uranus all tied to, your second and your third house, this is going to be money that's going to grow over time. So a good investment would probably be parking some of the cash and things that are going to make money long term, or that are going to, possibly pay dividends, right? Or property. Those are the two things that I would take into consideration. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Good luck. Lots of good abundance vibes. We've got May, and after May, we're going to take Alice, Vanessa, Michelle, and Miss V. Okay, May, so you were born May 6, 1981 in Concord. Oh, and I do not have your time, by the way. You were one of the few people that I didn't get the time from, so I need that information from you. Otherwise, I'm going to skip you and I'm going to come back. So I'll read your question. Since mid-March, when I came back to work from medical leave due to lost pregnancy, my employer has made my work situation toxic and is having a lot of negative impact on my health. I'm looking for another job and I want to get an offer soon. What does it look like for the next 6 to 7 months? Will a new job work out positively for me? I'm afraid of leaving a bad situation for a new one. Well, I'm sorry to hear that. That is a bummer. Let me know if you're here. Otherwise, I will skip to Alice because I would like to have your time before I read your chart. I'll come back to you. So May, if you're out there, let us know. I need to have those times. Okay, so Alice, December 31st, 1990 in France, 5:45 a.m. Okay, cool. So she may not be here. Maybe she will. We'll see. She said, hey, Candace, I'd like to know when I'm going to finally be able to get my own place to live. I had to move back in with my family and I need to get out. P.S. I don't think I'll be able to watch the live because of the time difference, but I'm excited to hear your answer. Okay, so let's take a look. So she's got a Scorpio rising, 29 degrees. She's back at home because Saturn is going through some intercepted houses. So it is approaching actually her 4th house where there can be some big changes in her living situation. Couple things here. Traditionally, Jupiter and Neptune have connections to your 4th house of home and family. So depending on what's going on with Jupiter, there can definitely be some shifts in regards to your living situation. There's a couple other things also. Part of me feels inclined to tell you that the decisions that you make the next year or two are really going to make a big difference in your living situation in 2024 and 2025. Movement is the 3rd house. So it's not unusual to see when Saturn's in the 3rd house, people go, I want to move, I need to move, where am I going, what am I doing? Really, it's a combination of not just your home, but also your 2nd house, which is finances, okay? So I notice you have intercepted Sag in your chart, which basically means that money, resources, finances can be a blind spot. You've also got Mercury that belongs to that intercepted sign, which is technically debilitated. So there can be some challenges revolving around where did the money go? How am I spending the money? What are my resources? But more importantly, What do I want to be when I grow up? What am I doing work-wise, right? Because it's connected to your career zone. Anyway, I love this Capricorn stellium. It probably has seemed chaotic the last couple of years, but this is a chart that's got an insane amount of talent when utilized appropriately. And yeah, you're feeling the stress right now because Mars is in your 8th house of other people's resources, opposing all of this, making you realize that you're kind of feeling, you know, financially bound to a home situation that's uncomfortable. Mars on the South Node. All right, so we want to see something that's going to be a positive aspect to either Saturn or to Uranus. And there's a couple things here that catch my eye. One is going to be Jupiter going into, you know, your 6th house and getting ready to make some trines to your 2nd house. So opportunity for work, expanding your routine, you know, getting busy, being able to bring in more resources. You know, there can be a sense of overworking, like you want to watch for that. But still, nevertheless, like work and opportunity to bring in seems very possible and very likely this year and next year because there's going to be lots of opportunities to enhance, you know, bringing in money. When Jupiter retrogrades, okay, and it starts coming back into a sextile with Saturn, you're going to have that, and then you're also going to have a retrograde in your 3rd. I feel like a better time to be moving would definitely be like either right around the, you know, November, December, January period this year. Or you could do something like when Mars and Saturn and Venus are coming together in Pisces, which is going to be March of 2024. And it's all going to start sextiling your Taurus transits and trining your ascendant. So those are the 2 times that I see that it is possible, but it's going to be built off of how much are you willing to work, how much are you willing to kind of dedicate with Jupiter, Uranus in your 6th house, and also focusing on managing time, managing resources, managing money. People who have stelliums in the 2nd house like this kind of function like Tauruses. So there is this slow and steady wins the race, and you have an insane amount of you know, connection to outer planets, very Saturnian, which means you'll make your money over time. You work for the money, you develop the talent. And I do think that with Saturn being in the 2nd house, connecting to the North Node and also Venus, it says that there is a need to kind of build your own self-esteem, build your own resources, not feel like you have less than or it's not good enough, and like not let other people kind of take a swipe at your self-esteem. I'm not telling you to wait for this, but I do kind of see this in the chart that when Jupiter and Uranus in the next 2 years are getting closer to your 7th house cusp, there's going to be more action revolving around relationships. It can be clients if you have like a client-based business. There can be like bringing in people who are more financially sound also. A lot of late Scorpio risings, as they're having Jupiter and Uranus going into their 7th house, are going to have partners show up that really open up the door, make it possible for them to feel abundant, because Jupiter is about wealth. Now, if you're an artist, for example, or if you're self-employed, or if you're a creative person, this could be a lot of clients that suddenly flood in and present you with the opportunity to make more money. So movement is very much on the horizon. I would stick to the times that I gave you, and I feel like probably the earliest that you're going to feel the most comfortable doing this, I know you don't want to hear this, is later this year. So that way you have what you need and you have been able to kind of build up your resources so you don't have to come back. Be mindful that retrogrades undo things. So when you have a retrograde in mid-December going into January, if you move too soon and if you haven't properly managed your resources this summer, it could bring you back home. So come up with a plan. I think that Pluto on your North Node is still, it probably feels crushing, and it's like a dire situation where you're like, I have to find resources. Whole sign 3rd, I have to move. Difficult conversations also with siblings and like other relatives can kind of come up. But I look at this and I go, okay, it's time to make lemonade. You know, you are technically this year, you're what, 30, you're 32? Yeah, 33, excuse me, you're going to be 33 this year, so you're 32. So you're kind of sitting right now in your 9th house year. So you're really very much affected by lunar transits, lunar eclipses and stuff like that. So pay attention to when you're having full moons. And this may be a year where you're considering continuing education, or you're considering travel and changing your philosophy revolving around, you know, your wealth and your resources and how you need other people to be able to grow that. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Alice. I'm sure you will see this when you wake up. Okay, we've got Vanessa, Michelle, Miss V. All right, so let's pull up Vanessa. All right, so Vanessa is a Virgo sun, Cancer rising, and her moon is in Cancer. And Vanessa says, hi, things between me and my daughter got so ugly last night. She became combative and violent. I'm so close to throwing in the towel and sending her to a dad's. I don't know if I'll ever be the same if I do. What or who is influencing her to act like this? Anyone specific? Who can I call on to help reunite us? Is there any herbal remedies? She attempted to run away, but my mom came to pick her up, only temporarily. So I remember, 12/31/2008. So she's going through all the Capricorn transits. Okay, so for starters, children, right, is going to be Libra for your chart. So, you know, just recently we had an eclipse that was in Aries, and it was going to trigger not just the 11th house of friends, but also the 5th house of children. Also, the South Node is still hanging out in your 5th house. So you're feeling the eclipses of some kind of clearing out going on with your child, because you only have one. At some point, okay, when we see like eclipses here in the fall, and when we see like, you know, Venus retrogrades, there is a potential, because of the South Node's energy, that there still is going to be some kind of like, do I let her go? I'm not encouraging you to do that, but that may happen. Now, specifically, I remember that all of this is pretty much in her 1st house. So the Pluto transit right now, conjunct Jupiter and her Mercury, can be very intense in regards to her mental state. It's not necessarily any one particular person that's influencing her. Being that, you know, Pluto can be about intensity, and it can be about anger and frustration and some kind of, you know, toxic purging. That's basically what's going on. And it's very intense because it's not just conjunct Mercury, it's also conjunct her Jupiter. This is all like within her 1st house. The way that I look at this is, you know, also 29 degrees deals with some kind of like psychic energy. So whenever I see a Mercury at 29 or a Neptune at 29, you know, these are very sensitive people. And she's got a couple indications of this outside of that. Her moon in Pisces, her moon Neptune conjunctions as well. 29 degrees of Capricorn is very psychic. It is about being able to have connections to the other side. Sometimes people who don't know how to manage those energies can have like, you know, energetic attachments, right? They can not know how to deal with that sensitivity. It can affect their mental state. It can also affect how they communicate, how they behave. And the truth is that you've got a kid that's already got Pluto, Mars, and the Sun in Capricorn. So you already can't really tell her what to do. So the fact that now she's got, you know, Pluto coming into the mix with her 12th house lord, Jupiter, and also her 8th house lord, Mercury, there is a need for her to be working probably with a professional and somebody who can help her through some of these emotional things that are going on. I don't necessarily think it's just, oh, send her to her dad's house, because I've seen his chart, and I know that even though he's got a lot of Capricorn in it, it may not necessarily give her what she needs, right? Because I know he's got like Uranus and Neptune on her sun. So there can be a sense of sending her to dad's house, and then dad's just like, you know, party dad, do whatever you want to do. Your mom's terrible. And then she may be worse. So I do think there's a need to get somebody else to intervene and like be working with her, right? So maybe it's not a matter of A or B and being like, do I keep her or send her away? Maybe it's a matter of getting somebody else involved and making her realize that she's still a minor. If she doesn't want to be there, that you guys need to sit down and come up with a plan and talk about it, but that you do want to make sure that she's actually discussing this with a professional before she makes any life-altering decisions. I also wonder, not to put this on your mom, but you know, Saturn is conjuncting her moon, and it's going to be on and off all year. So there can be a sense of like, I don't want to live with mom, I don't want to be around mom. It will pass. And she's got actually like a lot of support with some of the transits going through her 9th house, which can be about like grandparents. She's also got, you know, transits that are going through her 7th house, which is going to be about, you know, support from other people. So not to put it on your mom, but I'm wondering, like, is there a safe space where she could do something temporarily where that's kind of like the in-between, so she's not packing up her life and going to dad's house or, you know, running away or moving out. I think that's a better solution. But you're going to see more of this, I guess, is what I'm getting at. When you start to see, you know, eclipses happening in your 5th house, and when your 5th house ruler goes retrograde, she may come back. So you may see that by keeping that door open and that, you know, that communication open and not just throwing in the towel and being like, forget it, it may be beneficial because she realizes that you're willing to work on the relationship and you're giving her the space and you're giving her the option to choose, rather than being like, okay, best of luck, you know, I'll see you later. Because I think that you're going to have a bigger issue down the road on your hands when you start having these eclipses. And because you have Pluto, you know, in your 5th house, I don't want there to be like some kind of a crisis going on, you know, with your daughter later in the fall, and then she's coming back and there's even more problems. So I would keep the door open. Personally, I mean, I always laugh when you're going through a Pluto transit, what you really need is a priest. Because it's like the mind is possessed, you know. I have that conjunction natally. I have seen people go through these transits, and it's wild because if they don't know how to tame that connection, they get really, really, really dark. So my advice is what can you do to help her work through what could be some of this mental stress or anxiety, right? Because, you know, Mercury and Jupiter is very insightful, especially in Capricorn. But it's like you've got a kid that's like 14, 15 years old, but they're acting like they're like 70. And, you know, they're like, nope, you're wrong, I'm right. They won't listen. You know, very old soul with all of this Capricorn. So you've got a kid that's frustrated because she's come in during a time where she doesn't understand what it means to like be a teenager, and that there's rules and limitations and all of this stuff. Eventually, with this much power in her chart, you know, she'll be very self-sufficient, she'll be very capable, but sometimes that comes from, you know, having to learn the hard way. It's not unusual to see some of these people go, I'm running away, I'm moving out, I'm doing my own thing, I'll figure it out, and then they become self-made. The reason why you guys clash is because all of her placements square your Libra. So, you know, you have the Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto all in a square to her planets in the 7th house. If you go back in time and look at when she was born, okay, because she was born with these aspects, that should have been the beginning of the end of a relationship you were having with her father, because the 7th house represents a Capricorn, a relationship with a Capricorn. So she embodies that energy of, I'm going to bring some kind of chaos and change and transformation and conflict. She doesn't mean to, it's just where her planets are in aspects to yours. So my advice is, because I think you've probably been dealing with this all year as Jupiter has been squaring, give her some space, see what happens. There is a possibility that you guys have more opportunity in July and August to kind of smooth this over a little bit and keep the relationship solid, rather than dismantling it and fracturing it and then trying to kind of make amends down the road. And just food for thought for you, okay? You got Saturn and Venus in your 4th house. So there is a pattern and a history of having relationships with mother to daughter in your family lineage. It's there if you have Saturn, Venus there. So there is this archetypal theme of, okay, well, I had problems with mom and now I'm having problems as a mom. And you know, part of your lesson with Pluto is being like, I'm the generational curse breaker. So I'm not telling you do everything different than what your mom did. I'm sure you have a little bit more appreciation for your mom now after having a daughter. But I think it's about really looking at that and going like, I don't want to create the same divides that I had, you know, with my mom. And how can I do something different? And this is where the Pluto trine is coming in right now. Pluto is in Aquarius, and it's over the next few years, it's going to come into a trine with all these planets. So you want to be the curse breaker. And I do think that there is room for you guys to mend things, but if you send her off too soon, you may find that, you know, she's coming back and it's going to be a lot more difficult to be able to kind of like mend that relationship. I do not think it's any one particular person. I think it's the Pluto-Mercury transit. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know. Keep me updated. We've got Michelle, Miss V, Yellow Flower, and Maritza. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate it. Jen says, all three of my kids are like this. Yeah, it's kind of hard to reason when you've got Mercury or I guess Capricorn stelliums, Mars, Pluto stuff. These are tough kids, you know? Okay, so let's find Michelle's chart. And it looks like Michelle is October 4th, 94, 8:49 a.m., Panorama City, Florida. General, what can I look forward to? Thank you so much. Okay. Hi, Scorpio rising. Sun and Moon in Libra. Okay, cool. What can you look forward to? Let's talk about positive stuff. First of all, Jupiter's coming into your 7th house. Hi. That's really great for relationships. You're going to hear for Libras, it's about intimacy and resources and, you know, togetherness and change and transformation, which is true. But it's coming into your 7th house. So the changes are going to be coming through the form of like relationships, therapists, counselors, you know, clients. This is ruled by Venus though. So I think you're going to catch the eye of someone, right? Jupiter in opposition to Venus and Pluto. Likely you're going to connect with somebody who's going to make you feel very wanted or very valuable. I know that that sounds kind of crazy, right? You're in the midst of your Saturn return right now. Things might feel a little heavy. But I do think that you're on the other side of what's been some very challenging Uranus transits. Uranus has been in opposition to all your Scorpio, conjunct the South Node. So lots of instability with relationships, people coming and going, making, breaking, and challenging your relationship to yourself. But it's like now you're going to start to see why all of those things got shaken up. And Jupiter is going to come into your 7th house. So it's going to be expanding relationships. It's going to be about finding more support and value within these people. Taurus is solid, and Jupiter is going to sextile your Saturn. So you're going to start to see that like your home space is like it's symbolic of like your heart. So only the people who get in are the people who are like respecting your personal boundaries, so on and so forth. You got a really nice eclipse that's going to be happening there later in the fall. I think the other thing is that right now as we speak, you're getting ready to have your Mars return. It's so cool to see so many Scorpio risings that are having their Mars returns tonight because everybody's just kind of like, okay, where's the fight? But in reality, Mars in Cancer at 29 degrees, that is an indication that there is some karmic kind of turning points going on in your life right now in regards to your philosophy, where you're traveling, what you believe in. And Pluto is kind of like the big bad wolf making that opposition. So it looks like there's been pressure revolving around how you communicate, what you think, what you believe in. There can be some like, you know, crisis of belief system, you know, crisis in regards to education, something like that can be going on. You were born with this opposition natally in your 3rd and your 9th house. I'm wondering, are you going back and forth about, you know, whether or not you travel, or are you going back and forth about, you know, if you need to get some kind of certification or something? And for Libras, it's good for your career. So you've got a really strong period the next couple of months work-wise. But all of the energy this summer, man, it's going to be really loud. Let me show you. When you have Mars and Venus in your 10th, really lighting up, you know, relationships with other people, creativity, and it's going to be going boom, 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 boom. This will actually be the focal point of the T-square. So it's going to be like your status changing. So maybe for a period of time you've been single, and then all of a sudden you're going to become, you know, like in a committed relationship. Or perhaps, you know, you've been doing one thing for a living and then you take on a new relationship or, you know, partnership professionally, and now you're doing something bigger and kind of louder. So lots of changes happening in terms of like your status and how you identify out in the world. And I would just say to you, you know, being that you're in your Saturn's return, it's the decisions that you're making right now, there is going to be a sense of like that sticking for some time, right? Saturn is at the bottom of your chart. So keep reminding yourself that you're building the foundation in your private life emotionally that you're going to be building everything else on top of. So you have to be emotionally solid before, you know, you kind of get to the next step. Oh, there she is. Crisis in patterns. I can't break, dealing with consistency in what I desire and what I want to do with work. Okay. So it's expected. Saturn's at the bottom of your chart. You're going to see work breakthroughs when you have positive aspects to your sun. And the truth is like, you know, Mars is going to come into conjunction with your sun. You're going to have some eclipses conjunct your sun. Like, it's coming, but I think it's about like finding your groove over the summer and finding like the right person or right people to collaborate with, right? That's basically what's going to happen. And I really like the fact that all this Leo is going to sextile your sun. I mean, it can be about building a team, collaborating with friends, working with other creatives, building something that you might turn around and go like, wow, this is what I meant to be doing. And the fact that it's happening while you're getting ready to come into what's going to be a 7th house year, you're in a 6th house annual perfection, which means crisis, organization, blah, 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 until you get to October. When you get to October, you're going to go into a 7th house year, and then it's all going to be about partnerships, relationships, and everything coming together. You need support, right, from others. And there's a need to basically, you know, kind of figure out who can I call on, who can I ask for help. Consistency is very 6th house. So the fact that you had a North Node eclipse here, and Mars is the ruler, I feel like a lot of it is mind over matter. I hate to say that, but Pluto in opposition to your Mars is like, you know, do you feel like you're having difficulty paying attention? Do you feel like you're kind of distracting, kind of scattered? What can you do to become, you know, more so on top of your schedule and your routine? And for the Saturn, Neptune, Uranus people who have it in Capricorn and people who have it in Aquarius, as much as I hate to say it, it's literally about screen time. Capricorn is time. You've got Neptune, which is screens. They're conjunct. Something that can be really helpful is literally sitting down and going, okay, I'm going to spend less time comparing myself to what other people are doing. I'm going to spend less time doom scrolling. I'm going to replace that with reading a book, with teaching myself a new, you know, like a new hobby, or just dedicating more time to what you're actually going to be working on completing. But yeah, you have breakthroughs when you have Pluto Mars stuff. And Pluto and Mars are in opposition. The breakthrough is going to be coming July, August, and September. And boy, oh boy, when you've got Venus going retrograde, square your 7th, and it's going to also trine the North Node, you've got a lot of work coming. So the key is finding ways to stay on top of your routine and getting organized. And North Node and Aries in the 6th says it's up to you. Hopefully that's helpful for you. Good luck. We've got Miss V, Yellow Flower, Maritza, Abby, and then Stephanie. All right, so let's see what Miss V wants. Did you get the job, Miss V? Let me know. So she says, there we go. Okay, February 1st, 78. Sag rising, Sun in Aquarius, and Moon is in Scorpio. So we've got another Mars return. What's going on, guys? You guys all feeling the heat? I've seen a couple Mars in the 7th now. It's kind of like, I need to talk to my astrologer. I need to talk to my therapist. I need someone to help me. So I would imagine with that Mars return that you just had and the squares to Jupiter in the nodes, things have been colorful. You know, for a Sag rising, yeah, it's in your relationship house of feeling like you need other people to kind of show up, or there's like a lot of relating to other people. but it's it's on the cusp of the 8th house. So there's some significant changes going on in regards to like resources, and it's in a square to Jupiter in the nodes. So this is like, I want more, but 4th house and 7th house is emotions, connection. I want more fun. I want more opportunities for romance. I want to connect with other people, that kind of stuff. So the fact that this Mars return just ended, I'm curious what's happened like literally the last couple of days, because it was also reactivating that eclipse point. Besides that, though, I mean, the Mercury retrograde is done in your 4th house, so feeling emotionally kind of more so settled, more focused on what's going to make you happy. We've got Mars and Venus in the 7th house, which is prime time for relationships, although you're about to see oppositions to Pluto. There can be a sense of like people getting in your personal space and feeling a little overwhelming. And you're also finally seeing Uranus move away from the opposition with your moon. So much about like the retrograde and you know, Jupiter and the North Node aspects moving into your 5th house is like, you know, how do I find more pleasure? How do I have more fun? How can I enjoy myself and express myself? A lot of it deals with creativity. It deals with children. It deals with dating. So I'm liking that this is also kind of setting up for you, because I feel like it's really good with the trines to your natal Mercury. I mean, at the very least, it can bring in some new playmates and some opportunities for hobbies. At the very most, it can be falling in love with someone or something and giving you the opportunity to go deeper in terms of relationships. It may be seeding something also that's getting ready to play out over the next 2 years, because it's not just going to be in your 5th house of romance, it's going to go into your 7th house of relationships. So being a Sag rising, it might be a new job, sure, but it's really in your 5th house. And so I think it's going to have you thinking about like creating more time for the things that you love to do. That's kind of the way that I see it, right? If that makes sense. One other thing that I would mention also is just the fact that, you know, you do have Jupiter that is still slightly trining your Saturn. And I think a lot of this is about building on issues revolving around whether or not you're getting enough from other people. Appreciation, you know, resources, love, affection. That definitely comes up because it is kind of cusping on your 5th house. You're about to lose it though. And you're one of the people that I would really recommend paying attention to for this Venus retrograde that's coming in, because Venus is going to turn retrograde right on your Saturn. So I'm wondering, like, are you going to be clearing out some kind of debt? Are you going to be, you know, reconnecting to a steamy kind of romantic person? Is there something that's going to kind of come up very unexpectedly when it comes to your finances, and like, is money returned to you, or do you suddenly have like a windfall? That's going to be really interesting, conjuncture Saturn in opposition to your 2nd house. Just watch the money owed, you know, debt, credit cards, taxes. If there's any hangups there with the Jupiter square that's been happening, and now, excuse me, the Jupiter trine that's happening and what will be the Jupiter square, just watch for like overindulging for the sake of having fun, because it can kind of come back to bite you in the butt. You know, when we have transits through the 8th house, that's when the bills are due. But I'm really curious about the work stuff, because you had Jupiter going through your whole sign 6, then a retrograde there. So I'm wondering if you got that or not, and if you decided to kind of segue and go into a different direction. It's not yet, but you'll see over the next 6 months, you know, transits over your midheaven are going to be making directions, or, you know, going in a different direction work-wise, and maybe wanting to work closer to home, or wanting to do something that's going to be more so for yourself. So while you're having all of this yummy energy in Taurus in your 5th house, make sure you're making time for pleasure. Make sure you're making time for things that you enjoy. You know, the 5th house can also be about taking risks and taking chances. And so I wonder if some of like your investments, or some of the risks that you take in terms of starting new hobbies or new projects, or trying to, you know, like launch like a side hustle, it ultimately ends up becoming very successful. That's very, very possible. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Miss V. We have got Amy. And Amy was asking about a synastry. So let me pull this up. $925.79. And that was at 2:05 p.m. Michigan. Oops, wrong state. There we go. What's up, Amy? Okay, so Amy says, thinking positively in this Taurus new moon. After 6 years, we're going to do this thing for real. Tell me how to best manifest stability and commitment with this connection. We've got your chart, October 19th, 74 at 2:11 a.m. And that was in Salem. And he is September 25th, 79. Uranus opposition and Mars return opposed Pluto notwithstanding. Okay. Yet again, here is that magical 27, 28, 29. So the retrograde, the Venus retrograde, that's a really important point. I would be watching over the summer. Venus retrograding over the ascendant can be about a reconnection or, you know, bringing each other together. Okay, so a couple things. You're kind of in a weird time because when I look at this chart, transit Saturn for him is going back and forth over the South Node. So the question is like, does somebody have to move for the other person? Is there anything like that going on? Especially with Pluto going into his whole sign third, opposed Mars. Because I'm looking at Saturn being obviously in your 7th, and it's going to conjunct Jupiter. So it's about trying to be more positive and optimistic about the future of a relationship, but wanting to kind of cement and solidify that. And then also you guys are getting hit with activations of the eclipses. So I'm wondering like who lives where, what's the hang up, either revolving around the past. Okay, not necessary to move. Okay. So I think the biggest challenge then is going to be how can you guys find ways to really kind of come together over this summer, right? Come together and spend more time physically together. Commitment is more Saturn. So you should know with Saturn transiting through your 7th house still, coming into conjunction with Jupiter, it's making commitments for love, right? Committing and being in the relationship for the right reasons. The fact that it's going to go back and forth over his South Node may be a little agitating for him because he feels like there is a sense of him reflecting on the past. And as it's coming into the South Node in his 3rd house, I think it's going to be about learning to open up and communicate better. And obviously you guys are both getting hit pretty hard from these incoming eclipses. For a lot of Libras, the solar eclipse that we had in Aries was about, you know, moving through some challenges in relationships and dealing with partners that are kind of being a little bit more fierce or a little bit more independent or challenging to deal with. You guys are both Libras, so I think it hit both of you guys the same way. And now it's this reevaluation because 6-7 years is like right around the time that, you know, you're experiencing a Saturn square. So people start looking around going like, is this relationship going to move forward? Are we going to stay together? What are we going to do? Right? Anyway, a lot of what you're asking me is less, I think, going to be about your guys' personal transits. While they're important, I would just take into consideration once July hits, you personally, because you have all that Libra in the late degrees, are going to start getting hit harder. So you're going to have the North Node that's going to be moving through Aries in the 9th, and then the South Node is going to start swinging through the 3rd house. And what that's going to do, because the South Node will activate things, is it's going to bring up your tendency with communication to have a lot of erraticness with partners, right? Because it starts with Venus, then it moves to Mars, then it moves to the Sun, and then it's Uranus. So it looks like there's a lot of going with the flow, togetherness, maybe, being a little bit of like a pushover, willingness to do things for other people, and then realizing like, whoa, 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 that didn't necessarily go the way that I thought it was going to go. And then it leads to some disruptions in relationships, right? So be mindful when the South Node goes through here that it's going to bring all of that up. And it's probably going to highlight where there is a tendency to touch on past conversations that are going to be brought back up in regards to where you guys are going with things in the future. It's going to trine your descendant. Make out session with your Libra partner. Yeah, I think it's going to be also the fact that there is like this clearing or like this dump that's going to have like mentally revolving around like any hangups that you have in relationships, or that you have to like argue or like fight in relationships, or that you have to fight for relationships. There's going to be something that's going to clear out there as well. It's interesting though, because you guys have a lot of like, you have a lot of aspects in your synastry, like a lot. And, you know, Venus, Pluto, Jupiter on the ascendant. If he's committed to like actually doing this and making it work, then he needs to be on board and realize that you're actually really looking for commitment. And you're also looking to go further into kind of like building a future with somebody, however that looks, because Uranus and Jupiter are in your 10th house. So it's kind of like full steam ahead to having like a whole new identity over the next year or two, in terms of your public reputation, and really wanting something that's really solid and like out there in the open. And I mean, like I said, you can talk about the synastry until the cows come home, and you can talk about your guys's, you know, stuff separately. Really what you want to look at is going to be the composite chart. So this is the midpoint, and this is a Libra rising. And you guys are going to get hit with these eclipses. So there's an eclipse on your guys' composite ascendant and north node in October. And it's right along the ascendant. So that's high time to be like, okay, are we getting the show on the road? And like learning to let go of some of our own hangups in relationships so we can choose each other. And then a reverse nodal return. So that's the time to watch. It's going to be then. Between having a solar eclipse on your ascendant and a lunar eclipse in your 7th, it's about taking the steps forward to really being able to like make this happen. And it also might be that you guys have to kind of talk about your fears, your hangups from previous relationships, because you have Venus, Pluto, and the Sun in the 12th house, and like really kind of clearing out some of those issues where there has been, you know, problems in the past with both of you guys, or there's stuff that you guys have not necessarily healed. And I think with Jupiter going into your composite 8th house, this screams to me that if you guys are having problems, it's really important that you guys are possibly considering going to couples therapy together, because you have the transits that people generally have then when they need to be working through some of that stuff. But yeah, things are going to heat up more because of those eclipses in the fall, and also Pluto's coming into conjunction with your IC. So it's funny that you were like, no, nobody needs to move. No, I'm not saying you have to live together to be together, but even in your composite chart, Pluto is in the 3rd house coming into the 4th, which means there's going to be some significant change, transformation on the home front. One of you guys might have a family crisis. One of you guys might need to move. One of you guys might say, you know, like, I just want to get to where I feel like I'm having the support of another person and I don't want to have to do life alone. Something like that may come up. So even in your guys' composite chart, it does kind of talk about that coming up in this next year, especially when you have Mars, Venus, and Pluto all conjunct the beginning of 2024. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you. And let me know. We have Maritza, Abby, Stephanie. All right, Maritza. Let's see, let's pull this up. I saw your question. Let's see, there she is. Definitely, especially for the beginning of next year. People are asking, when are the readings for the rising signs? These are readings that people called in for. So they're not by any particular order. They're by chart basis. All right, so we've got Maritza. Okay. Here we go. August 25th, 84. 9:47 p.m. in the Bronx. So you're an Aries rising, Sun in Virgo, Moon in Leo. Okay, can you help me with these dates for an elective surgery? July 10th, July 11th, or October 2nd? Well, off the bat, I'm not going to be crazy about the July dates. What are you getting done and where? What are you getting done and where? This is one of those things that you want to be very specific with. I'll tell you why I'm not crazy about July 10th and 11th. You know, sometimes clients come to me and they go, this is the date that I have and I want it to be, you know, this, or this. And I'm like, yep, very rarely do the dates that you guys pick line up with good astrology. That's just the way the cookie crumbles. So I know you probably are flying to Miami to get some cosmetic procedure done, but the astrology may not be ideal July 10th or 11th. And the reason being is that you're going to have Venus that's in the shadow. Okay, so just hear me out on this. I've had so many people who have gotten work done during the shadow of a retrograde and they don't like it. Okay, so it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, but essentially Venus is about beauty, right? It's about the female physique. So you've got Venus that's going to be back and forth over your moon. So I'm wondering, are you getting breasts? Are you doing something to your tummy? What are you doing? Because that can very much be the moon. Let me know if you're watching this because that's definitely helpful. But knowing that you're going to have Venus that's going to go retrograde, and Venus is about your public appearance, or it can be about people who like service you, or it can be about like partners, is not ideal. Okay, so that's red flag number one. Red flag number two is the fact that Venus is also going to be in a square with Uranus, which tells me that, and Jupiter, if you're trying to go too big, too fast, or there can be some kind of issues in terms of like your body fat ratio, or it could just be that you're just doing something so significant, right? Jupiter Uranus in the first house is like, do it different, make it look big, make it look, you know, ultra futuristic or very sculpted. And it might actually be something that you're very emotional about in terms of how it looks and the fact that you may look very different. That's the truth. You just had an eclipse on your ascendant, so I think that's partly what's triggering this, is when you had this eclipse, it was like, okay, I'm setting intentions for how I want my body to look. The nice thing is that the Venus, you know, retrograde, it is going to trine your ascendant, okay? And so that makes me feel like if this were me, I would not do July. Because if you get this done, first of all, you said July 10th and 11th. So just to look at these days specifically, the 10th, you're going to have Moon, Jupiter on the North Node. Cool. You're looking at your body ruled by Venus, slightly coming into a trine with Venus. But Venus is also, like I said, in the shadow, and it's in a square to Uranus. So no, that would be a no. Moon, Jupiter, and Jupiter rules the 8th house of surgery. If you're like, I have to do one day in particular, in my mind, you're probably better off doing something when the North Node, the Moon, and Jupiter are in conjunction, rather than the next day when the Moon comes into conjunction with Uranus and it squares your Venus. I don't think that's going to be great for healing. I'm also not wild about having, you know, Mars in Virgo. That's just my 2 cents, because you're going to have Mars square Mars. So the other date that you gave me was October 2nd. So you picked another day where the moon is going to be in Taurus. We've got a moon that's going to be still in a square to Venus. It's going to be in a trine to Mercury, and you've got Mars that's going to be debilitated, conjunct the South Node. I'm not wild about either one of these days. I'm not wild about any of these days. I'm just being honest with you. But I guess if I had to pick, at least I would know that you were out of the Venus retrograde. So if you're saying these are the 3 dates, pick one, I would go with the third one. But I'm still not wild about this. The only reason why I'm okay with it is the fact that we are starting to see that Venus is trining the ascendant again. It's the fact that we are starting to see also that there is some positive aspects that are going on with, Venus and Mars are in a sextile, but Mars is not happy being in Libra, and it's conjunct the South Node. Personally, I feel like you might choose this date and it might get rescheduled. That somebody else might potentially kind of back out between a Venus retrograde and a Mercury retrograde. So I will give you a free one here. Sometimes it's not A or B, sometimes it's C. And if this were me, I would want to have like Mars in Scorpio or Mars in Capricorn if I was going to go and do something cosmetically to my body. I would also want to have like Venus in Libra. So you've got some of these aspects going on. So if you could push this, and I know you may not be able to, but if you could push this to something like when the moon is in your 8th house and it's coming into a trine with your ascendant closer to like November 14th-ish. I don't have a calendar in front of me, so I apologize, but that would be a better time. Another time could also be when you have the sun in your 8th house coming into a trine. Yeah, you're going to miss the moon trine. Oh, no, you can have that. Right around the 22nd of November. Yes, I know it's getting into the holidays, but this is better astrology. At least you've got planets in your 8th house of surgery. You have in your Mars return, Jupiter's still in your 1st house, you got Venus in Libra. These are better transits. So once again, like, I'm sorry, you know, if you're telling me it has to be one of those 3 days, you probably should go with October. I think that would be much better than doing the transits in July, but if you can push it to the other dates that I just gave you, those would be even better. Hopefully that's helpful. And also, it depends on where you're getting these, so I don't know because you didn't tell me. But if you're doing anything in regards to the breast or the stomach, even more so, those transits are good. And be mindful that if you do any of the work during or right up until the Venus retrograde, even though it's going to be before, because Venus is going to retrograde and square your 1st house, it's going to take longer for you to see the effects of it, I think. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. We've got Abby, Stephanie, and Christine. Let's see. And don't worry, I did not forget about the people that I've got in the super chat. Okay, so Abby says 2/4/81, excuse me, at 1:12 p.m. in Decatur. So Cancer rising, sun in Pisces, and your moon is in Scorpio. What's up, Abby? Hi, kind soul. I'm an attorney, and on April 19th, when we had the new moon solar eclipse at 29, I lost my job, and I haven't secured one to the state. I do have Saturn in Pisces right now, and I am intimidated. Can you talk to me about Saturn in Pisces, Pluto in my 8th house, and prospect of gainful employment? Thank you. Okay, gotcha. All right, so you had an eclipse in here, and the 11th house is about the money that you make from work. Does that mean that you lost your job? No. I think it happened because of that, and also because it opposed your natal Pluto, and it squared Pluto. So it's bringing up this theme revolving around, changes with your income and other people and how it makes you feel, okay? Employment in general for you, Placidus-wise, is going to be about transits into Pisces. So when do I see people like really go and build their career? Saturn in the 10th, Saturn conjunct the sun, Saturn sometimes conjunct the 10th house ruler, right? Guess what? You've got all of these things setting up. Okay, so, you know, if there is a sense of feeling like somebody backstabbed you, it's all about how you look at it. Yes, backstabbing is possible with Saturn square Uranus because you got Uranus in the 6th house of coworkers, and this is people who will undermine you. One thing I wonder is, like, well, you're a lawyer. What they did, was it ethical? You know, is somebody, you know, potentially like blackballing you? Be careful with that, with some of the squares, because there can be some stuff that can come up where you can be dealing with employers that are not being ethical or, you know, following the law. Anyway, Saturn is going to hang out technically in your 9th house for like the next year. While it's going to be in conjunction to your sun. So that's an indication that you'll get something. Maybe you work remotely. Maybe you work closer to home. We need to see some nice stuff going on, maybe with like your 2nd house of making money, trining stuff that is connected to your 10th house. And yeah, you've got that coming up soon. Mars has been going through Cancer. It's been in a trine to Neptune, but Venus, I think, is going to be more so about like relationships. So, you know, Venus in a trine to Saturn you've had, Venus coming into a trine with Neptune. It's looking decent between now and early June. It is possible that there is a job that comes through for you in early June when you have that full moon in Sagittarius, because it can be about career. I wouldn't be intimidated about Saturn. I wouldn't look at Saturn that way. Saturn deals with commitment and maturity and the willingness to get the job done. And being that Saturn rules your relationships with other people, Saturn sitting conjunct your sun and also your midheaven is saying that you just need to be more mindful of like the facade that some people give you, that, you know, they're good to work for or easy to work with, or that they're trustworthy. Saturn in Pisces is about invisible things that we don't see and having better boundaries. So for you, it can be about, you know, you listening to your intuition. It can also be about you doing some kind of work where you're working with an international company, you're doing some kind of work in the nonprofit realm, you're doing something for immigration, maybe you're going to be doing work revolving around medical malpractice, especially since you have your sun at a 6 and Mars on the midheaven. So I don't know if you have any experience in some of the fields that I'm mentioning, but, you know, Saturn coming into conjunction with your sun and Mars makes me feel like this is the setup for you to go and work for probably another firm so you can get your feet wet and then go into next year when you have even more skills and you're going to be even more capable of like totally kicking ass at work. And that'll be when Saturn is coming into a trine with your moon. And you're going to find that, you know, April, May, June of like 2024 is very busy because Saturn and Mars are at the top part of your chart, trining your natal moon. So it's going to be about like doing more work. So I don't know what kind of work you do legally, but there's something that's going to come up that's setting you up for a better opportunity, in my opinion, looking at some of your transits. Because Saturn coming into a square with Uranus, sitting on your sun, is like, you know, it's better to kind of get the skeletons out of the closet rather than staying there longer and like committing yourself to working with people that would not have been ideal for your growth long term. You're going to see, especially like the sun coming into the trine. I think June, July, those are the 2 months that are going to be the strongest for you work-wise. I wonder, though, with some of the retrogrades that are going to come, if you're looking at, you know, well, do I have to work further from home, or, you know, am I, you know, potentially considering like relocating for a job? These things can happen because you're going to see so many planets come into your 3rd and your 4th house in retrograde, and it's going to oppose, right? So yeah, I do think that that's possible. Working spaces is Mars. So whatever you end up doing this year, you may transfer and go to like a new location next year. So, you know, talk to them and ask them about, you know, whether there's room to transfer or what have you. And if you haven't figured out what kind of lawyer you want to be, you know, the fact that you have Mars on the midheaven and Mars is connected to accidents in the 6th house, and it's also connected to groups, I don't know. I mean, you could do a lot of things with that. It's just whatever you do, you need the authority to have some freedom, because with Sun square Uranus, it's like, I can see you like to travel. I can see you like having the ability to kind of navigate and do things on your own. And I don't think you want people telling you how to navigate with your schedule, or, you know, where you have to be. It's probably challenging enough knowing that you have to kind of like show up and have court dates and things, or have meetings with people. But you would do very well, I think, with malpractice. Medical malpractice, wrongful death, with Mars being in Cancer. And I also think with Pluto going through your 8th house, I wouldn't be freaked out about that. Number one, Pluto's comfortable in the 8th house. Number two, you know, Pluto going in and out of Aquarius, it's not really doing anything yet in your chart. When it gets closer to your South node, yeah, so that'll be in a couple years. But your South node's at a 10, it's ruled by Uranus. It makes me feel like you're going to say fuck it, and you're going to go and start your own practice, because you're going to realize you're going to make more money doing that. And that'll probably be right around here. right around 2027. So who knows? Maybe the interviewing process is great, and maybe I've given you a couple different ideas for different types of law firms that you can try out and use this year as an opportunity to learn and kind of get your feet wet, paving the way to make it possible for ultimately you being able to have more independence, right? Because I think that's what you really want with this chart. And yeah, Saturn the 6th sucks, and Saturn on your sun means that, you know, you're having to hold back and not give somebody a piece of your mind. So be careful with that Scorpio moon. It will definitely unleash when it wants to, but I don't think you're gonna have a problem with work. I'm not trying to be like super blasé about it, but Mars, the sun, Venus coming through your 2nd house, I would just recommend find something that you feel like you can continue to keep doing that you enjoy, you know? Yeah, you do. You have some yods there. You do. But I think probably the most interesting thing about this chart is that you do have your moon trine your ascendant, your Mars, and also your sun. Like, you're really good at doing research. You're really good at uncovering information. You're really good at kind of getting to the bottom of situations. So something involving that stuff and like proving things can be like really actually quite good for you. So I think that you're gonna need something where it's not just kind of like, you know, boring legal stuff. Like you need something that you're gonna allow your Scorpio moon and your Mars on your midheaven to kind of sink your teeth into, so you can really kind of create a case, because that's what's gonna keep you entertained. Otherwise, there's just gonna be drama at work. Hopefully that's helpful, Abby. Good luck. Lots of good work vibes for you. Okay, so let's see. So we've got Stephanie, and then we're gonna take the super chat people. So if you are Christine, Danielle, Rachel, Sihaban, or Wendy, you guys are the second batch. I gotta plug you in just a second. So we're gonna do Stephanie, and then I have to import some charts. You're welcome. Good luck. Okay, so Stephanie. Is this the right chart? Let's see. June 6th. Where are you? There we go. Okay. Stephanie says, June 6th, 93, 4:50 p.m. What career will bring me success, and how will I make my wealth? Thank you. Says the Scorpio rising. Okay, all good questions. So a couple things. So what career would be best for you? So obviously, career is going to come through your natal 10th house, which is right here where Leo is. And so this might talk about your public reputation. The sign and the degree talks a little bit about what you might do, how you might do it. And then we've got, I apologize, let me move this. I'm moving things around that I shouldn't be. And then we've got your 6th house, okay, which is going to deal more so with your daily routines, your office space, things like that. So that's Aries. All right, so interesting stuff. You have got your chart ruler, being a Scorpio rising, Mars, in both your 10th house, and it's also connected to your 6th house. So having Mars in your 10th house means that, like, when it comes to work and career, you want to be the best. You want to be the star. You want to run the show. You can be very competitive. And it also means that you can be very successful. Mars can be anything in regards to action, metaphysics, action, sports, encouragement, anything in regards to fighting. In the sign of Leo, though, it's like more about like shining and performing, or like being creative. And it is at a 20 degree, which is a Scorpio degree. The challenge in your astrology is that you do have Pluto square Mars. So there is like this sense of like having challenges, I think, with other people at work. Like you might find that you don't always get along with bosses, or that People might be like a little bit intimidated by, you know, just the way that you navigate life and the fact that you're just kind of like, yeah, I'm here. You know, what are you going to do about it? I think also with Mars in a sextile to your sun, you may do well in business stuff revolving around like helping people change and transform, right? Change and transform their mind, change and transform their resources, banking, mortgages, loans, investments, like these things might interest you. And I noticed with Mars's connection to your 6th house, there can be a sense of like being of service to people. So it could be having clients. It's also possible that this can be about, you know, working in like the entertainment world, working in fitness. I wonder if you would do well like being like a fitness coach, a motivational coach, somebody who may also be in the service industry, because Mars can be about, you know, cutting and transforming and changing or coloring. So sometimes I've seen people who have a Scorpio rising, Mars in the 10th, and they work in like, you know, they do hair or they do makeup for like the entertainment industry. But yeah, you've got some challenges here between, you know, Mars and Pluto. It looks like the last couple of years with Saturn coming through your 4th house, it's been like home and family challenges, putting the pressure on you to change and also change your career. And the last 6-7 months, Mars was going retrograde late 2022 into 2023 over your sun. So you were probably looking at changing careers, or you were kind of pivoting and going back and forth in regards to, do I make a change in my career or not, right? Anyway, when will you possibly see some real growth when it comes to your career? Or when are, you know, you're asking about money. Money is going to be about Jupiter. So Jupiter is in Libra in your 11th. So it's about having support from groups and other people. Your North Node is in the 2nd house. So you're here to learn how to make your own way. You're here to learn how to make money. But once again, Jupiter trine your sun. So you make money through helping people transform their wealth, transform their body, transform their mind. There's something there. So I'm wondering, like, what would interest you? 8th house suns are going to have an attraction to spirituality, metaphysics, psychology, therapy, things that are about research, stuff that's like in deep. So I'm wondering what interests you. And I noticed that you will have this Capricorn moon. So there can be some confusion about, what do I believe in? Where do I want to go to school? What do I want to study? So there's like a sense of like still trying to figure this out. Many changes in regards to your career in this lifetime too, with the South Node conjunct the Sun. And you're looking for some positive aspects basically to both your natal Sun and your 10th house. Now, once again, June, July, August, you know, Venus transits and planets coming into your 10th house is very strong in your horoscope for trying to figure out career stuff. I'll tell you that I think with a chart like this, with your chart ruler being in the 10th house, 33 will probably be the magic year. So right around the time that you're turning 33, you're going to see that's when things are really changing in regards to your career. So that's going to be about 3 years from now. 1, 2, 3. And sure enough, that will be the year that you're going to see Jupiter coming into your 10th house, and there's going to be eclipses that are going to start in your 10th house. You're also going to start seeing Saturn coming into a trine with Mars. So that'll be the year that you're kind of getting everything set up. But those are some ideas in terms of some things that you would be good at. But definitely helping people change and transform or make investments seems to be like really strong for you. And I wonder if you have an interest in doing some kind of work where either you're managing clients or you're helping clients because you got Venus along your descendant. Okay. Hopefully that's helpful. Let me know. I've got some people in the chat. What are you guys asking? Hey, Susan. Hey, Zika, sorry you just missed us about an hour ago, but we'll be back next week. We always post them generally like on Thursdays. If not on Thursdays, the day of, so you guys can always sign up early. Okay, so with that being said, I'm going to need to plug in the rest of these charts. So I've got to do a number of people's charts. I'm just looking at Christine. Let's see. Okay, so Christine asked for a couple different people. I just wanted to see who that was. And I'm also going to put in people I have from Super Chat. So you guys will be first. Thank you guys for waiting. So if you guys want to grab a snack, get something to drink, I'm going to just be probably about 5 minutes and then we can get going. All right, so let's plug in Chris. And then also, Jen, did you send in your info? I'm looking at you signing up, but I'm not sure if you sent it. I'm not seeing it. Let me know. Oh, okay. So did you donate 2 ways? Sorry, I'm just trying to make sure I did not miss you. Okay, so we got Stacy. I guess we have Jen, so we'll find you in there. And all right, so let's plug in everybody else. Christine. This is for Gary. Okay. For Christine, I don't have a city for Gary. I need that from you. That's important. Let me know if you have that, because I need that information, because it holds everybody up. So let's look at Danielle. 7:25:77. $7:55 p.m. Five, 6, 19. Okay. St. Paul, Minnesota. Okay, got Rachel in here already. Thanks, Katerina. Appreciate it. Detroit for Gary. Thank you. $5:23:55. 4:57 p.m. Okay, so we got Danielle, we got Rachel, Shane. August 29th, 1999. $2:49 p.m. $11:20:77. Hey, Christine, were you also born in the Philippines? I'm trying to find this. I think I have the right place, but I just want to make sure. Okay, I'm gonna, okay, cool. Just wanted to make sure. Wendy, you're like the real champion. If you go to sleep, I would not be surprised. Okay. Okay. July 5th, 86, 11:10 p.m. Okay, I think, I could be wrong, but I think we have everybody. So let's take a look here. So we're gonna start with, we have Stacy, and now it's not going all the way back for my chat. Who was the other super chat? I know we had another one here. I hate to even ask, but I can't even see it. So I'm looking for it, but I can't find you. Oh man. Chris? It was Chris. Chris, Stacy. Jen. I'll have to, Jen, just remind me. I can throw you in there, and let me know what your question is too. You have to confirm. I'll have to confirm your birth info again. Okay, Chris, cool, got it. So general career and health question. I got you. Is it Sihabin? Sihabin? I'm sure I'm botching it, but I've got you. Don't worry. I see you. Okay, so we're gonna start with Chris, and then I'll take the other couple people. Okay, so Chris, I got you here December 28th, 1981, 9:34 a.m. in Denmark. So just general, but you have a health question. Can you let me know which one you'd rather have me answer? What I can see just going off of the transits right now is that, oh, let me put today's date. How about that? There we go. The moon has connections to your 6th house, okay? Health. And Pluto is retrograding, coming back into a conjunction with your moon. So it can be digestional health, mental health, emotional health, eating habits, you know, patterns revolving around also anxiety, because you've got South Node conjunct the moon. So, you know, there's that going on. You're wrapping up what's been like, you know, Pluto transits are about a year and a half. So Pluto's coming back for one more conjunction, and we're also going to see the North and the South Node square. So essentially what this means is working through like emotional triggers, or working through digestional issues, mental or emotional health issues, patterns and habits. And I've found that when the South Node is on the moon, they have a tendency to have stress, anxiety, things like that can kind of come through. So things are going to heat up, especially like the next couple of weeks, as Pluto goes back into Capricorn in June. The North and the South Node start squaring in July, which is putting the pressure on you to really communicate and express and like work your way through some of these emotional things, how you're expressing yourself. Pluto transits, it's a great time to like work with a therapist, work with an astrologer, somebody who can kind of help you work through some of these kind of subterranean emotions that are emerging, which can feel scary. And at the same time, you're also watching Pluto, you know, come out of the square with your natal placements in Libra. To be honest with you, I wonder if it's been like fears revolving around, you know, vulnerability in relationships, intimacy in relationships. And once you have Pluto out of Capricorn, come the end of the year, moving into Aquarius, you're going to be done with Pluto on your moon. So this has been several long years, like especially all through the pandemic, 2020, 2021, having Saturn and Pluto sit here probably felt like the end of the world. So now you're coming out of it, but it's going to be what new emotional habits and patterns do you now work through? That's basically the long and short of it. It can bring about changes also in like where you're living, how you're expressing yourself, how you're dressing. Health-wise, you know, something I would just watch is like sometimes when I see Moon Pluto transits, people can develop eating disorders. I have seen that, especially when there's other squares in the chart, which you have, and it can be where you're noticing that there's changes in your eating patterns when you're stressed. And I think it's also, you know, being that it's at a Gemini degree, like, you know, talk therapy can be really, really helpful in better expressing some of your habits and your patterns, especially because Pluto can bring out kind of like a more obsessive side. I know this sounds heavy, but you've already been in it for like the last year. So anything I'm telling you is not anything new for the most part. In terms of things outside of that, something that you do have working in your favor is that Jupiter going into the sign of Taurus, moving into your third house of communication, is trining all this Capricorn, and you're like going to find an outlet. So Jupiter in the third would be wonderful for like traveling, learning a new language. It would be wonderful for journaling, for going for walks, for biking. Things that are going to bring you pleasure, right, through the lens of the third house, which is kind of like a anything goes house. So it's going to be moving around, traveling, you know, communicating or writing. And I wonder if that can be like an excellent way for you to express yourself better, to be honest with you. You've also got a number of transits that have been going on in your fourth house, in your third house, closer to your third and your fourth, which makes me wonder if a move is brewing or some kind of change on the home front or some kind of shift that's going to be happening within your home. It can be like roommates. It can also be changes revolving around home decor, how you're feeling at home with your family, and whether or not you're considering or anticipating moves or relocations like within this next year. Before any of this stuff happens, though, you know, you're going to pick up most of the trines from Jupiter to your Sun and your Mercury, which is why I feel like, you know, manifestation, journaling, you know, mindset things you can listen to, like self-help stuff can be really helpful with Jupiter in the third. Something you can listen to while you're biking, walking, you know, driving, to help you move through some of these changes. Because until Jupiter is fully in Taurus next year, trining your ascendant, that's when you're really going to go through the huge emotional shift and possibly changes within your home or your living situation for the better. And Saturn is your chart ruler. So, you know, you got Saturn in Pisces now, and this entire year, Saturn in the first house is now kind of dealing with the emotional body after you've gone through the physical and the energetic body. Now it's the emotional body trining the midheaven. So there is a sense of you learning to let certain things go and not feel like it's your responsibility to take everything on. With Saturn trying the midheaven, you know, it's time to do that. And I also feel like having so much Capricorn in your chart, holy cow, sun, moon, and rising. I mean, you're the type of person that's like, I've got it, I can handle anything, let me take care of it, I'm good. And at some point, that's going to crack. And it can be that you're having aches and pains and joint issues or dental issues or problems with your skin or problems with your bones, because that's all Capricorn. You know, Pluto going through this part of your chart will definitely age you and show you where if you're taking too much on, it can manifest as, you know, physical ailments and problems. So my advice is with, you know, your chart ruler trining the midheaven, you're learning to basically go, it's okay for me to let this go. That's not my problem to take on from other people. And just because I can doesn't necessarily mean I should. And all these planets in Taurus are teaching you how to slow down, get in the body, get comfortable, and start focusing on things that are going to bring you pleasure. And it may not necessarily be stuff that's to make money, but it's going to be things that are going to be more self-expressive and creative, and possibly even like connecting more so with the mind. So reading, you know, traveling, learning, things like that are going to bring you a sense of enjoyment. Hopefully that's helpful. Definitely go and learn about Pluto transit your moon, because when the North and the South nodes start squaring this in July, you're going to feel the pressure. And if there are any bad habits physically, emotionally, or health-wise, or anything health connected, because it's connected to your sixth house, that has not been dealt with, it can manifest as feeling like it's an emotional crisis. Okay? Good luck. Okay, so the second that we have, sure, Jen, I can give you a credit. No worries. I'll make a note of that. Here we go. We had the second one, and it was Synastry. Where is it? Why am I not seeing it? Moderator, do we have the other one? Sorry, the chat goes way back. I can't find it. But I know that we had one. I want to say it was for Danielle. Do we have her info? Nope, not Chris. Danielle. Oh, I have Stacy. Danielle, are you still in the chat? No, that's not her. Hold on. It was it Stephanie? No. There was another person. Let's see. There was another... No, there was another super chat, but I'm not seeing it now. And it was pink, and it was for Synastry. That's crazy. I didn't know that stuff disappears. Wah, wah. Who was the Synastry person who had questions? There was somebody who sent me a super chat, and now it's missing. As much as I hate to say that. Yeah, I had the wrong name. Don't worry, Danielle. Hold tight. I've got you here in a second. There was another person. It was a super chat person. And Katarina, if you paid, let me know if you paid PayPal or super chat, because no, I saw it. It was pink. I know I sound crazy, but I'm sure it was 65 bucks. I don't know why I'm not seeing it. Okay, see if you can find it. Let's see. Stacy? Oh, Stacy. Okay, there it is. I'm not seeing it on my end. Sorry. No, I can't get rid of this. Sorry, guys. I want to make sure I don't miss anybody. I don't want to miss anybody. So it was Stacy. Yeah, Katarina, if you paid, I'm gonna have to refund you because we closed the window like an hour ago, my dear. I'm sorry, I missed you. Okay, so it's Stacy. That's who it is. There she is. Okay. Stacy, are you there? Yeah, I got her. Can you, I don't want to pull that image up again because it's going to pull up stuff on my desktop. Can you please send me the information for the other person? I have hers, March 3rd, 93 at 10:44 p.m. But can you give me the birthday and the time of the other person? For Stacy, the image that you just sent me. I can't pull up any more windows on here. It's not doable. There we go. Okay. Oh, I thought there was another person next to that. Okay, never mind. Okay, so is there a relationship coming up for me? So Stacy, you are a Libra rising. You have your sun in Pisces and your moon's in Cancer. So you're asking about relationships, which is going to be connected to your 7th house. The good news is that having had an eclipse here recently, it's basically planting a new seed for new relationship opportunities for new people to come in. The connection between Jupiter and the North Node also bringing opportunities for new partners to come in. It may be people you connect with locally, maybe people that you meet like on the internet, kind of chatting a little bit, or if you get the opportunity to travel because of Jupiter's connection to your 3rd. But Mars is what actually rules relationships. So you're seeing Mars is getting ready to make an opposition to Pluto. So anybody that you're meeting is likely going to be further away. So let's see, like when we have Mars coming into harmony with Venus in your chart. So Mars is going to go through Leo. It's going to start forming a trine to your natal Venus. So I could definitely see like relationship stuff kind of setting up for you, especially the second half of June. So right around the time that we're starting to see Mars and Venus harmonizing, because you're Venus and other people are Mars, and meeting people at work, meeting people out, you know, in your professional life, networking, you know, connecting with others, especially having Venus in your 6th house. That's really strong for connecting with people at work or within your work routine. Even if you were to like go out with coworkers, that would also open the door to possibly meeting people. And you are going to see Mars and Venus moving side by side for quite a while. On top of that, you've got Saturn also that's kind of getting ready to go into your 5th house, which can be about finding a significant romantic connection. And being able to kind of like, you know, find something that you feel like is significant and that's going to stick. And that's going to be kind of going on and off all this year. It'll fully move in next year. And then the time where I really think relationship stuff is actually going to stick is probably going to be closer to this eclipse. This will be the last eclipse in Taurus, and it'll be conjunct Jupiter. This will be the end of October of 2023. And this is going to be with a trine to Venus, which is your chart ruler. Venus is not totally thrilled in Virgo, but this makes me feel like you might meet somebody through a party, or you might introduce somebody that you're dating to your friends, and a relationship could set up there. And then that would be the end of October. Another time can be when you've got the North Node coming into conjunction with your Venus at the very beginning of 2024, which is activating some kind of connection, love relationship at a 19, another person. The challenge is that it's going to be in a square to planets in your 3rd house. So to me, it seems like you want to watch for like miscommunications in relationships, having clarity, being very clear about what you want. And, you know, your natal Mars is you know, conjunct the moon in Cancer. So there is some kind of indication that you meet somebody while you're further away, or you might meet somebody while they're traveling, while you're going to school, or you're doing some kind of continuing education or training. That's the other way that this could potentially, you know, kind of play out. But because you have Mars conjunct your moon, square Jupiter, square Venus, oppose Uranus and Neptune, that's a very complex placement that you have for relationships. To me, it seems like there's relationships, but once you get involved in them, there can be some challenges and some issues with like communicating and being on the same page. So you're working out quite a bit of energy here with all of these cardinal squares in relationships. You know, being a Libra rising with Venus and Aries in your 6th, I mean, that is an indication that you're going to have some conflict with some of your partners. The good news is that, you know, the cosmos are kind of on your side. I mean, between the North Node and also Jupiter being connected to your 7th house, people are going to come in, but I wonder if there's going to be some kind of going back and forth and like having a relationship where you have to travel back and forth to each other. You guys are having to communicate more by phone. Something else I'll note is that you're 30 this year. So you're in a 7th house annual perfection year. So that means when things are in your 7th house, or when planets are moving through your 7th house, or when your 7th house Lord is like on the move, things happen, which is Mars. And tomorrow, Mars goes into Leo. opposes Pluto, and it's going to come into a square with Jupiter, which means like you're starting to think more about, traveling and going places. Maybe you're going to be going on a trip with your friends. Maybe there's an opportunity for you to be connecting with friends in other places, and like that's how you end up meeting someone. You will have, Mars change signs several times this year. So it's going to go through Virgo, then it's going to go through Libra. And I have a hunch that when it gets into Libra in the fall and the eclipses start, that this is going to be about you having met somebody and then being like, I'm going after that. Like, that's what I want. Like, now I know what I want to commit to, around mid-October of 2023. So get out there, go and travel and do some things. I think as a Libra rising, the fact that you're going to have Mars in your whole sign 11th and a Venus retrograde, it wants you to get out there and socialize. And you might meet somebody who's a friend that's interested in you, or somebody who has a party or wants to kind of go somewhere, and then you connect. But really interesting stuff in your relationships. I don't know if you want to expand on that, but that's actually incredibly complex to have Venus in Aries and its debilitation, and then Mars as well in opposition. There's some very, very interesting relationships that you've had, and it almost seems as if love is always at a distance, or it kind of feels like it's out of reach, if that makes sense. Good luck. Good luck with that one. There's going to be a lot of needing to embrace the people who show up the way that they show up, if that makes any sense. Okay, so we have, outside of that, I believe that is all of our super chat people. If I'm missing anybody, please let me know. If we miss anybody, or if you got in too late, we will reimburse you. Don't worry. And I think that's everything. And those of you guys who sent super chats, just a heads up, I know there were like 2 people that sent less than the amount, so I apologize, but we've got a minimum on the donations for readings, but we appreciate your support. Okay, so who do we have next? So we're gonna have Christine, and Christine, you asked a couple questions about different family members, so I'm just gonna do them all in order, okay? So we're gonna start with Gary. And Gary's May 23rd, 1955, 4:57 p.m. in Detroit. What are the chances of us winning legal cases against our silent partner in business? He's claiming ownership instead of investor, embezzling company funds. Okay, so interesting stuff. We're not to you yet, Wendy. We got probably about 5 or 6 people before yours is done. Sorry, I keep moving this on you. Okay, couple things. So let's put the right now transits. There we go. So, lawsuits is going to be like a connection of Mars and also your kind of 7th house. So yeah, having a bit of a squabble, right? Jupiter is in your 7th house, coming into a square with Pluto. So it's like your word against someone else's. It's all going to come down to like documents. Winning something, believe it or not, answering that is very complex, because a lot of it's going to be based off of when you guys started the lawsuit, and also that other person's information. So that's pretty complex question there. You're going to need a little bit more than just one question for that. But I'll say this. When you have positive things going on with your 6th, 7th, or 9th house, that's generally when we see, people have positive outcomes with lawsuits. 6th house can be more so about like settlements and things revolving around things that have gone wrong that, people have to end up kind of paying you for. 7th house does deal with like legal representation sometimes and like judges. 8th house is about money owed, and the 9th house generally can be the judgment. It can be the decision. So there's a couple different factors. Looking at money that's owed to you is purely going to be the 8th house. So you just recently had a new moon here. I know it's almost his birthday, but a new moon here, which is basically planting a seed for being able to have money brought in, okay? So when I look at that new moon, it's saying, yeah, it's kind of setting up to bring something in within the next 6 months. And I know that when we get into Scorpio season, you're going to have an eclipse that's going to be in your 8th house, conjunct Jupiter, which can be about winning something that's owed to you. It's possible. Why do I think this is happening right now? Well, you've got Mars, which rules your money at the top part of your chart. So you're fighting for that, and in opposition to Pluto. So it's going to be other people from the past in a square to Jupiter, which is partners. And it's become like a whole family affair, whether it's you asking questions or this is going to be like, you know, you and other people in the family, you know, kind of being like, when are we going to get our money? And it's very intense now because of all of the squares between Mars, Pluto, and Jupiter. So just being a late Libra rising, for anybody who's like late Libra rising or Scorpio rising, the tension between partnerships and career and home and family life is like very intense this week. So you guys want to be super mindful to just like cool it. Nothing is really going to come out right now, and pushing or fighting for something also is not the way to go because it can create more conflict with other people. I have a feeling that whatever has been seeded these last couple days with Mars, which rules partners, going through the 9th house, they've been going through the process of, you know, doing their due diligence to connect with counsel and making sure that everything is ready to go. So that way you guys can move forward and see to it that you get what's owed to you. But you need to be prepared that that money may not come until you have a really strong Venus transit. So my view on this is that the momentum and the intensity of the situation is going to kick up a lot more at the end of June going into July when your chart ruler starts squaring Uranus and Jupiter. And it's going to be this matter of being like, we want the money, we know they have the money, where is it? And I do think that part of the, you know, Jupiter or Uranus retrograde may bring out the truth that they have the assets and the capabilities of being able to pay you. It's just somebody who's trying to skate by and not do it. When you see like Sun and Mercury trine Saturn, there can be judgments in early July revolving around this case. You also have Jupiter hanging around your Venus, which can be money that people owe you. But that doesn't mean that it's going to come easily. I have a hunch that even if you guys do take this to court, there can be delays. It can take time. There is going to be more tension with the family and more tension in your relationship with your partner over these resources. And I would say you're looking at possibly getting your money back when Venus is going to be like in a trine to the North Node. So you're looking at the second half of September. To when you have that eclipse, which is going to be in Taurus at the end of October. So it's going to take time. It's not going to be something that's going to show up immediately if it actually ends up showing up. And if we look at Gary's natal aspects just in general, he's got a ton of planets in the 8th house, which is about the money that other people owe him. So this is like an ongoing theme in his life, whether this is like, you know, he takes out loans and makes businesses, or, you know, he invests money that, you know, is money that he shares with a spouse. Just all that 8th house is going to be about that like constant exchange, right? So what's going on this year is that Saturn is in Pisces, squaring his sun. Actually, for the next like 2 years, Saturn is going to square his sun, his Mercury, his South Node, and his Mars, which means he's going to kind of be in a situation where there is more challenges revolving around, you know, getting the money that he needs from people. It might mean that there's increased costs because of his own business. It might be because of children, what have you. So the Saturn squares are alive and well, and it'll go on for 3 years. And because it's going to finalize with Mars, it's going to be finally like whether or not people are going to pay him back, or whether or not, you know, he's kind of in some financial hot water in certain situations because money is owed to him. Be very careful with like borrowing and lending, and be very careful with taxes. That's my advice. He wants his silent partner to be out in the company. Yeah, I mean, when you out people professionally, generally it's when there is something going on with the 10th house and the 7th house lord. So you've got Saturn, you've got Neptune squaring it, and you've got a Venus retrograde here over the summer. So the time to start that process of unraveling it would be likely over the summertime. But it's going to be loud because there's going to be a sense of wanting to, you know, end that relationship, right? When Venus goes retrograde, we reevaluate relationships. But it's also going to be about the money that's owed. And if somebody is saying, oh, well, I can't pay it, or I don't have it, or I won't pay you, or I'll see you in court, some of the squares to Jupiter and Uranus are going to literally revolve around whether or not you guys can prove that he has the wherewithal to be able to pay you, or if he's giving you a run for your money in regards to some of these things, right? Hopefully that gives you some clarity, but I do think that there are some transits here that do make me feel like, yes, it's just going to take longer than I think, and you may have to actually go through the process of, you know, making sure that he follows up on the potential judgment, right? Doesn't have a written agreement. Yeah, I mean, I think, to be honest with you, I mean, the other side of this is that, you know, when it comes to agreements in his chart, that's the 3rd house, and Capricorn is intercepted here, ruled by Saturn, and he's got Saturn here. So one of the biggest challenges you're going to see is that as Jupiter opposes Saturn, you're going to have stuff where partners are going to say to him, whether it's his spouse or his business partner, whatever, hey, we talked about this, and he's going to go, no. No, and he's going to like disagree with things that have been spoken about or agreed upon. And when you have your 3rd house, you know, Capricorn that's intercepted, it's like you need to have some of this stuff in writing. You can't do business just by making agreements, whether it helps you or not. Like there needs to be more definitive, you know, agreements and stuff on paper. Anyway, I hope that's helpful. Okay, so then I have Shane. There we go. And he's August 29th, 1999. And am I saying that correctly? Excuse me. She's taking her certification exam next week. Just wondering how she'll do with personal chart if you see international travel this summer. August 29th, 99, 2:49 p.m. So taking exams, that is going to be more connected to Saturn, Mercury. Saturn's in her 3rd house right now, sextile her ascendant. So that's going to be going on and off this entire year. We've got Mercury coming into conjunction with Saturn. So you've got 2 aspects that are really great for exams. Saturn sextile the ascendant and Mercury coming into conjunction with Saturn. It's about like commitment and focus in regards to what she's studying. So especially at the end of May. The challenge here is that when these conjunctions come together, it's going to start squaring things in her 8th house. So it's going to be about, Mercury square Mercury, information, communication, getting results. Mercury, Uranus, square Venus. I think this can also be about whether or not she feels like she can just like be calm, revolving around, moving forward and, getting her results or, knowing, how she may have scored on things. Oh, you said she just graduated. So why am I getting a question about, her certification. Okay, so it's certification. So yeah, I mean, I think that she's going to be like, I'm not going to celebrate until I know for sure that I've passed my exam. That's kind of the feeling that I get with the squares to, Venus and Mercury. I don't want to celebrate yet. We can't have any parties yet. We got to make sure I pass. Traveling in general, especially like foreign travel. She does have a 9th house sun, so I can see that that's something she wants to do. Jupiter is coming into a trine with her sun. Jupiter is also trining her ascendant, broadening her horizons. So yeah, actually traveling is probably very likely the 2nd half of July, when she's got Mars going into her 9th house here. And it's going to come into a trine with transit Jupiter and also Uranus. So I think that maybe mid-July through, let's say, like September, that would be kind of the better times for her to travel. Keep in mind that there will be a retrograde here, so there can be some wonkiness revolving around traveling that can happen around the end of August, beginning of September. Okay? I'm not saying don't travel during a retrograde, but this particular retrograde is going to oppose Neptune, so it can revolve around like, does she have the documents needed to travel? Does she take too long to get a passport? Does she lose her ID? How is she going to fare being in a country where she doesn't know the language, right? Like something like that. So you might want to talk to her about like, feeling comfortable with like knowing a little bit of the language to wherever she's going, or making sure that she's got like a translating app or anything like that. The Mercury-Uranus conjunction that's setting up right now and the square to her natal Mercury-Venus is the stress, and I think revolving around exams. But she's got a lot of trines and sextiles to transit Saturn. So I I don't feel that there's going to be a lot of issues here. Maybe if she had Uranus square her Mercury, I'd be like, she's such a nervous wreck, she can't, but no, I'm not really seeing that. But yeah, just remind her, you know, kind of mid-July through September is good for traveling, but if she's going to be traveling at all during that retrograde, make sure she has the right passports, documents. She might want an extra copy of an ID or something. Make sure she feels confident with communicating where she's going and getting around, right? But being that she's got like Sun in the 9th house and, you know, Jupiter trine the Sun, traveling, going and experiencing other cultures, being in other places, it's actually really, really important for her own personal growth. And then you asked a question about you and your husband. I'm going to assume that's your husband. So much going on in her life and business and home life. If you could check her synastry, we need a heads up on her chart and what things we need to watch out for in general. So we've got Gary and you. So let's take a look at you because you're a Pisces rising, Pisces moon, Sun in Scorpio. I love this. I know I've seen this chart before. I'm sure I think I talked to you and your husband. I remember who you are. Second week of June for international is fine, but she's going to be somewhere probably into July. That's the one thing that I would say, having looked at her transits. Probably the biggest thing is that Neptune is coming into conjunction with your moon. So I don't know what you know about that, but it basically is going to be like where there can be lots of opportunity for intuition and psychic abilities and clarity. But there can also be like lots of like worry and like stress and like, oh my God, worst case scenario, you're like, what's going to happen, right? When in doubt, like when you're going through that, if you're feeling that, like taking a bath, going for a walk by the beach, being by water, meditating, like these things are going to be really helpful so you don't do like the Pisces spiral. Two is, you know, in your astrology, you've got lots of transits going through your second house, which is really good for money, but it's going to be ironically in your second house, like money you're building, money you're creating, you know, ideas that you have, things that are kind of getting seeded. And it's less about feeling as reliant on other people because you got Sun, Uranus, and Venus in the 8th house. It's about being self-sufficient, right? So it might be a time in your relationship where like you're saying to your husband, I've got this idea, let's do this thing, right? And like, you know, being the person who's going to like initiate and go and plant the seeds for some of the new business stuff that's going to be happening. Equally, you're having a Saturn opposition this year. So Saturn's like kind of in your 12th house. So sometimes you do need a little bit of space to kind of rest and recuperate. And in terms of like your guys' like relationship stuff, you know, sometimes when you've got, especially for a Pisces rising, Saturn and Neptune kind of moving through your sign, there can be this sense of like feeling super alienated or like super, you know, like focused on, oh, how it's affecting my health, my body, me, my mental state. So be mindful that that can have an effect on relationships. There can be a feeling because Saturn is starting to come into a square with Mercury that it's going to be about whether or not you guys are speaking the same language, whether or not you guys have the same beliefs or philosophies about life, like a need to just totally, you know, maybe more regularly be having meetings and kind of like checking in with one another. You're also coming into eclipses that are going to be happening on your nodes, and you're about to have a nodal return. So that's going to send the South Node through your 7th house, and it doesn't mean that relationships have to end. It just means there's going to be some kind of transformation that is going on within your relationships, like getting rid of business partners, right? But it can also be changing therapists. It can be about, you know, changing people that you're just collaborating with. New clients can come in, right? And then you're going to have the North Node going through Aries, and it's going to dip into your 1st house. So first it's the financial building, and then when it's in the 1st house, then it's going to be more about being more action and impulsive and kind of, yeah, more willing to kind of stand up and like make stuff happen. So it's kind of difficult when you have a Pisces moon and Pisces rising because you just want to kind of keep things peaceful, but you're going to start seeing eclipses in the 1st house where you're going to be like, no, I want my money, pay me, you know, or this is what we're doing now. There's going to be a much more assertive side that's going to come through for you. And I also think that you're going to start feeling Uranus in opposition to your Sun here pretty soon. So not for about another year, but you're going to start feeling the effects of it this year because it's getting within range. And that definitely radically changes the relationship that you have with other people. And so I think it's going to be about people who owe you money. It can be about investors. It can be about how you look at insurance, how you're looking at things in terms of your resources, also with like you and your husband, if that makes sense. Having kind of looked at his chart a little bit, knowing that he's a Libra rising, you know, it's Pluto square his ascendant and his descendant, which represents some kind of radical change, transformation. Feels like chaos within the home and the family that puts pressure on partners and pressure on him as well. So, you know, you'll move through that. That's going to be something that's going to get a lot easier after about June or July. But it can feel like, do we have to change home? Do we have to change work and home? Do we have to change our routine? What needs to kind of like shift? And the good thing is that you got, you know, Jupiter in your 7th house. So communication can really solve everything and make it possible for, you know, you and your partner to be on the same page. And, you know, Jupiter's coming into a conjunction with his Venus, which means he's got a partner who's going to go, this is how we're going to make the money, or this is how we're going to change the business, or this is how, you know, we're going to invest things. So a little bit of a flip-flop going on there. And finances actually look good this year and next year. But it's all going to come down to, I think, making some shifts revolving around like what you guys are doing with your money, if that makes sense. Gary's a Libra rising, but his sun is in Gemini in the 8th house, and his moon is in Cancer, and he's got a whole stellium of planets in Gemini in the 8th house. So dealing with like insurance and health and you know, billing, or things revolving around like care, or people who need some kind of like rehab, generally kind of comes from all of that energy in the 8th house. And so what you're going to see with Jupiter going through there is that there's going to be changes or opportunities for there to be changes in those particular fields. So, and he's got Saturn square Sun. A lot of it is about whether or not you guys initiate new ways of making money, or if you completely break off from what's been happening in this existing business relationship and kind of restructure some things, you know? Hopefully that's helpful for you guys. I'm sure I will get a chance to see you soon. That's some wild stuff you got going on, but I mean, for the most part, I think it looks positive as long as you guys have somebody who's kind of representing you, who knows what they're doing legally. But I think you're going to have to tango with this person a little bit over the summer. All right, so we've got Danielle, and I know you were here earlier, so I'm hopeful that you're still here. Danielle, Rachel, and I'm going to say Mr. O'Connell. That way I don't botch your name. Okay, so Danielle, hopefully you're still here. Danielle says 7:25:77 St. Paul at 7:55 p.m. And then we've got somebody on May the 5th, 88. That's right. How are you guys doing? I remember seeing this at one point. It was the back and forth with the relationship, if I remember correctly. Okay. We don't know the time, but that's okay. She says, April when we went, had a meltdown, April when we ran into him. I'm not sure if, I said I'm not his person. He needs to tell me. I can't deal with not knowing what has changed in the years. He just kept saying, it's not that, I just don't have time, which has been an issue. I haven't heard from him since, and I don't know what to do if this will ever change. Okay. Miss, got it. Oh, okay, so there we go. You're making me crazy. Response even on his birthday. Okay, so this is you, and then we've got the other person, and then you're wondering what's been kind of going on. So in my mind, let me make this about you first before we bring this other person in. In my mind, I'm thinking about the fact that now Pluto's in Aquarius and it's opposing your sun. And this is about like the personal change, transformation, can feel like a crisis as a result of something ending in a relationship. I'm also thinking that because the moon represents, committed relationship, and we've got the moon in Pisces, the Saturn in Pisces square your moon, it's like, it's taking a swipe at your self-esteem and your security, whether or not, you feel supported or that somebody's making time for you or that somebody's kind of committing to you, right? Sun, Saturn, Mercury, all hanging out in your 7th house, still getting hit from Uranus squares. And you are going to be one of those main event Leos where when you have this Venus retrograde coming up this summer, there's going to be a lot of reevaluating relationships and whether or not somebody comes back to you, especially from the past, right? When do relationships stick? When you have something positive going on either in your 7th house or with your 7th house Lord. So the fact that you've got Saturn square it makes me feel like you want to be really careful with relationships this year and like have a clear definition between being together and like being friends or not being together, because it can have a real negative impact on feeling safe and secure and feeling like, feeling wanted, feeling needed. Saturn square the moon can make it difficult to emotionally relate, but it's only going to be if you're allowing people to kind of come in and you don't have boundaries with Saturn in your first square the moon. It is also referencing the need to like have a strong support system and like female friends as well. Okay, so with that other person's chart, although we don't know the time, I'm sure we've talked about the stellium of planets in your 12th house, that there can be a feeling of like him being a blind spot, right? Not getting a lot of clarity there. We've also got his Mars in opposition to your Saturn. And he's kind of going through the cosmic washing machine, knowing that he's a Taurus and he just had this eclipse, 7th house to his sun on top of his Pluto. So I don't know when you ran into him, but I'm wondering if it was right around the first week of May, right around his birthday. No response even on his birthday. So that eclipse could have been you reaching out to him, but it's also like coming into conflict with his Mars. And I'm wondering if like there's something going on where he's just like, I'm more focused on myself right now. Knowing that he's got eclipses in the North Node that's still in Taurus, it can be that the focus is more on himself and it's taking away from relationships, and that there's also like lots of room for growth within his career. People always talk about like having, signs that square you and like whether or not it works. I mean, I think that these are midpoints. These are why midpoints work. I don't know if those of you guys who know what those are, but I mean, when you have midpoints, you're getting stuff that's activated, that's bringing in somebody who's a challenge. So of course, Tauruses, Leos, Scorpios, Aquariuses, they all kind of bring each other in. And when he comes into your life, he's activating a grand fixed cross. So there can be a sense of being like, okay, that is my missing piece. But also there is a lot of things that need to change in both of your guys' lives for you guys to kind of come together, right? I do feel like the fact that he's got his Venus conjunct your Venus and your Jupiter is why there is this sense of being like, oh, this is a really good match. But I think it's very possible that you're dealing with somebody who does not entirely know how to communicate or express themselves because they got that Moon, Neptune, Saturn, Uranus stuff. I don't know what you know about his relationship to his mom, but it can be that that's like a bit of a tough cookie to crack when it comes to being emotionally vulnerable. And I also think that, knowing that he's a Taurus and he's having eclipses that's in Capricorn, it's going to bring up all kinds of stuff for him regarding, like where he's going with his life and what his life purpose is and, what he's building and what he's creating. Like, this can be a time where he's very consumed with what's going on with his needs. And it doesn't mean it's taking him away from somebody else, but if he feels like he can't give somebody 100%, he might kind of turn him loose and let him go. Intuitively knowing that for Tauruses in general, a Venus retrograde is going to be dealing with a woman from the past, and knowing that it's going to be in your 7th house and it's going to come into conjunction with all your planets, I feel like that can be where somebody comes back to you. But you have to ask yourself if you want to continue to keep going round and round, because you're still going to see Pluto make oppositions to your sun. You're still going to see planets, especially the beginning of next year, like Mars, Venus, and Pluto oppose your sun. So I would recommend not bringing somebody in unless they know what they want. And I also feel like once you get out of this Saturn square and you're coming into like the next 2 years where you're having at least Jupiter activating your moon, relationships and love are very possible, but you need somebody who is going to give you clarity. And this guy's got all kinds of planets in the most hidden, secretive parts of your chart. Your IC, your 8th house, your 12th house. Like, you know, did you feel like the relationship was hidden? Did you feel like there was a sense of like not getting a lot of visibility, or there was like lack of commitment? Just makes me wonder, because that's kind of the vibe that I'm getting here. And, you know, I think that you guys have had several cycles of retrogrades, Mercury retrogrades, Mars retrogrades, Venus retrogrades these last few years, which could have brought you guys together, but it could have been to like work something out, right? So it's really hard having somebody who has all these planets, I guess, in your water houses, because there is something that is very kind of hidden or quiet or secretive or vague about the relationship in general. And I would be very careful. Go and learn about, you know, transit Pluto opposing your sun. The fact that he's got his Mars there already makes me feel like this will be somebody who pushes you to stand up for yourself. And basically like just go, you know, are you doing this or not? I don't want to just be somebody who's, you know, gonna be there when you decide you want a relationship, right? And know that there is an opportunity to kind of set the record straight all summer long. So if you don't want to be just like an option, if he ends up coming back around, or if you end up connecting with somebody else, you know, you can find that your love life can totally turn around with some of the transits going through this part of your chart. I hope that's helpful. Okay, so we have Rachel. What's up, Rachel? Rachel's May 16th, 89. And she says, money and job related, what's coming next for me? I'm trying to trust the divine plan, and I feel things moving forward and falling into place. I just would like a little encouragement. Thank you. All right, you're welcome. Rachel, I've got you here as a Libra rising, sun in Taurus, and your moon is in Libra. So what do you got going on in regards to some of these more positive things in your life? So things falling into place, job related, money related. Okay, so for starters, you got Jupiter in your 8th house. Hi, that can be a period of bringing in more, okay? Prices going up, you know, getting better benefits, getting more support from other people. It won't happen off the bat because it's coming into a square with Mars, but probably when you see Jupiter go deeper into Taurus and start coming into an opposition with Pluto and a sextile to Saturn, hard work is paying off. Equally, being a Taurus yourself, knowing that Jupiter is going to hit the sun and the sun rules gains in your career, that's going to happen. I wonder if you have to work with a group because Mars is going into your 2nd house, or where there's going to be like group exercises or having to have meetings, or maybe you're just like socializing and networking more. That can be really good for bringing in money as well. As Mars goes through the 11th house, the more connected you are with other people, the more likely that you're going to see an increase in the resources that you're bringing in. Obviously, Venus also deals with money, right? So Venus in your Placidus is your 2nd house ruler, and you got Saturn square. So it looks like you're trying to stay positive, trying to stay optimistic about the fact that money is going to come in. You may have some challenges with meeting deadlines. You may have some challenges also with female coworkers. Being that Saturn's going to square both of your Mercury and your Venus, I would be very cautious about, you know, talking to people involved in advertising. Be very careful about trainings and certification. Be very cautious about doing relationships or dealings professionally with people in foreign places. There can be a sense of just not getting a lot of clarity, and people coming in being like, I can be your savior, I can help you. And you're like, what did you do for me? And you wouldn't really start to realize this probably until about September or December. So keep in mind that as all these planets are getting ready to go through the 9th house, it's like this is when we learn, we travel, We change our belief systems. We start thinking about marketing. We start thinking about how we can kind of branch out into the world. And being a Libra rising, you're getting all this yummy energy with the trines to Pluto. So this is about, how passionate you are about the bright side of life and all the positive things that can happen, and the trines to your ascendant. So this is actually really nice because I do think it's also about like being creative, feeling lovable, feeling like connected to other people, enjoying yourself, having a good time. And knowing that you're coming into a very busy time in your career. Obviously, you just had your birthday, so now you're moving into an 11th house year, which is all about parties and games and friends. So you're going to see something happen pretty much from about end of May all the way through August, where May, June, July is very work driven. And then there's going to be a lot of like connecting with new people, joining new groups, feeling recognized, feeling appreciated, getting, able to sit back and at the end of summer look at things and go, I'm really glad that I made time to connect with people, work hard, but also have fun because that's really important in your 11th house. And I wonder if it's going to be about you working with a group or joining like an affiliation of some kind that could really help expand some of your professional goals. Very, very doable. It can be really agitating, having Saturn in the 6th house because it's work and then it's more work and then it's more work. And then I couldn't imagine that on top of the squares to Mercury and Venus. There's a lot of having to maintain the faith, right? And I think with Saturn in the 6th house is be mindful of your health. Don't overdo it. There can be a sense of overdoing it too much. Your North Node is in Pisces, but it's in the 5th house. So it's about finding ways to have fun, feel inspired, be creative. And yeah, you feel like something good is coming when the North Node when Saturn hits the North Node. So it's going to be back there again in September. And from September to about January is when it's going to leave. And then you're going to receive a lot of your goodies for all of your hard work. And of course, it's because Saturn's going to then trine your Pluto and trine your Mars. So you're going to find that it was worth all the work and the sacrifice that you put in this year. And also just the fact that you're going to have more emotional security and stability, knowing that, you have work that's kind of in flow with like the life that you've been wanting to kind of build and create. Money looks good though. Money's not going to be a problem. You're going to have Jupiter in your 8th house all year. And then the stuff really starts to get good financially when Jupiter hits Venus. And that's going to be in June of 2024. So you have a lot to look forward to. Right now, just make sure that you are realizing that it is not just about work and making money. It's also going to be about how money and resources provide you with the opportunity to reinvest or to have financial freedom so you can go and do some of the things that you want to do. And you need to be surrounding yourself with people this summer who are going to be helping you feel inspired. Okay? Hopefully that's helpful for you. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so here we have, let's see. Here we go. Once again, Miss, I'm going to say O'Connor because I know I'm going to botch your name. I apologize. I do. I know you spelled it out for me, but I don't want to take too long going through this chat and making you wait. So I've got you here, July 5th, 1986 at 11:10 p.m. and that was in Cork, Ireland. And your question is, I feel like there's a lot going on for me at the moment, particularly the North Node and maybe the Grand Cross. My living situation is my main worry at the moment. Thank you. Well, when I look at this, thank you. Shivan, am I saying that right? I've got Aquarius rising, 11 degrees. Sun in Cancer and Moon in Gemini. So at the moment, you've got some stuff going on with your living situation, and you're wondering if it's somehow connected to the fixed squares. Well, possibly, yeah. Mercury rules your 4th house Placidus, but as an Aquarius rising, you can see some stuff getting kicked up also from the Jupiter, ingress into Taurus, Mercury retrograde. That can be an indication of being like, well, I think I'm going to have to like move here soon. And like, what is it going to cost me? How is it going to affect my resources? You'll hear with Jupiter going into your whole sign fourth, square Mars and Leo, that there's issues either at home on the home front or with roommates, or realizing that you're like, hey, a situation's not working, somebody's being combative, I gotta go. Jupiter has your back, okay? So Jupiter is doing this primarily because you've got some confrontational people with, you know, Mars going through Leo here pretty soon. But it's doing this because it wants to get you like into a more comfortable space, or it wants to get you into like a new space. Thankfully, the retrograde's over. You know, I would watch when Mercury is coming into conjunction with Uranus. That can be like some really uncomfortable conversations and realizations that like something's got to give. And that's going to be closer to about, you know, the first 10 days of June or so. And Uranus is your modern day ruler. So watching Mercury and Uranus align around the 4th, really pay attention to, you know, conversations about what needs to change on the home front, particularly siblings, by the way, or aunts, uncles, or cousins, because that's what Mercury is. I also think that this is Mars coming into conjunction with Mercury, squaring Jupiter. So there's some themes revolving around like, you know, conflict with people in the home, communicating and talking to them. You can move if you want, but I wouldn't do it under these Venus transits. I would wait actually until Venus is going to be like in a square to Jupiter, and you might have something open up around mid-June, or you may be able to like go and, you know, lose yourself at work, or possibly go and spend time in another person's place and like visit them, because the Venus square Jupiter can be good for kind of getting out of the house. Another option, and this will be inevitably down the road, like next year Jupiter and Uranus are going to go into your whole sign 4th house. So likely there is going to be some radical change at home and with the family, whether you like it or not. So it's just a matter of like when you're going to do this. I also think that the transits that you're having with Uranus square Venus makes me feel like it's going to be hard to, you know, have peace with other people in the living situation anyway. You are Uranus, by the way. So there can be a sense of like you creating, you know, some tension, or you kind of squaring off with people in the family and creating some conflict because Uranus wants to come in and it wants to shake the whole home and family up. Sometimes you are the, you know, like the black sheep, but really you're the person who comes in and goes, well, this person's the problem, and you did this, and like you're not listening to that person, and this isn't fair, and like you're kind of just like shaking everything up. You know, it's not intentional, but that's what you'll do with your Uranus transit, and call people out on their shit. So there can be a lot of challenges over the summer with some of these squares that are going to be happening, where you're going to have people who are going to be like challenging you. So if you know you're already having some issues with like siblings and stuff, I would say just prepare, because there can definitely be more drama on the horizon that can be going on between you and other people. Perhaps when you have your North Node return, which is going to be happening pretty soon, it's more about like feeling more so financially secure and stable, and capable if you did want to make a change in your living situation, but I don't think that would be until closer to the end of summer. I also know that even if you hang in there, like I said, you're still looking at some kind of move coming down the line spring of 2024. So it's not going to be very long until you're going to be kind of freeing yourself of this, you know, particular home or living situation. I think, quite frankly, with Saturn in a square to Saturn, and also your midheaven, there's a sense of like, well, what am I going to do? What am I doing, right? Where am I going with my life? And thinking more about how you can take matters into your own hands and become, you know, more so self-sufficient, or not feel like reliant on other people, and make some changes in regards to your career or your own personal life. So that way you're not feeling like you're at like the mercy of family and relatives, because that's how you're gonna feel the next couple of months. You said your sister's coming home in July and you're going to leave the country for that visit. Yeah, especially because Venus rules family, and Venus will retrograde in your 7th, and it'll square. I'm not telling you that you have to, but it wouldn't be a bad move actually if you went to go and like visit somebody else while family is visiting. You could do that. But I think that this is really coming more so from the fact that Jupiter and Uranus are getting ready to set up in your 4th, and Saturn, your chart ruler, is in a square with natal Saturn. right? So it's a lot of like, okay, what am I doing? And yeah, you're going to feel like you have to do stuff by yourself. You're going to feel like you have to go your own way sometimes, unfortunately. Who am I is a regular question. What's cool though is that you do have, you know, Saturn that's going to start forming trines to your sun. So I do feel like there is room for you to be like creative about how you can be more self-sufficient and what you can be kind of building or creating for yourself that's allowing you to have like more freedom. I think when Saturn comes further into Pisces and it's coming into conjunction with your Neptune, you may try to find like a way to, you know, make money creatively or through art or music or some form of self-expression that's going to feel like it's going to give you the opportunity to kind of break free. But yeah, definitely the Mars-Pluto stuff you're feeling, but it's more than that. It's much more than that. It's Saturn square Saturn, and this is the first period, 7 years after your Saturn return. So now there's a lot of like, what am I doing? And I notice you have Saturn in the house of education and also in the house of travel, philosophy. So when you have your Saturn return, it's a lot of like, do I need to travel? Do I need to go back to school? What do I believe in? You know, like, where is my life going? Like, what is the purpose of life? And it's trying to get you to act on some of the lessons from your Saturn return. Hopefully that's helpful. All right, so we have Wendy. Wendy. Okay, so before I finish Wendy, did I miss anyone? And if I did, please give me your name, because I do not want to miss anybody with Mars-Pluto squares, because I know I'll get some very angry emails in my email box. Wendy wants to know about the two things that Wendy wants to know about being a Capricorn, moon, sun in the second house. She wants to know about love and money. All right, Wendy, you're welcome. Wendy, love and money. Well, you're kind of in an interesting time here. Mars and Venus in the second house, making money, spending money. Venus is super comfortable in the second house. This is the one time of the year when she is blessing you with more resources, more abundance, and it's going to come into a conjunction with your sun. So yes, sweet words, sweet nothings, but also contracts, agreements, communication, people bringing you sweets, flowers, goodies, things like that. So it's definitely a thing. And you're also seeing Venus and Mars forming trines with natal Saturn, transit Saturn, natal Neptune, transit Neptune. So it's a lot about how you feel with the way that you're making money, how you feel at work. Digging these water trines, I think it's very positive. I also think that you're going to see some more abundance that's going to come in, and it's going to be through some kind of group or collaboration with other people, because now Jupiter's in Taurus. So Jupiter's going to start coming into a trine with your moon, which is going to activate your money house. So you're going to see that you're connecting with like foreigners, wealthier people, people who want to make investments, and having lots of meetings with those people. And then you're going to have this Jupiter energy also sextile your sun. So it's going both ways. You got Jupiter sextile your second house sun, which is about the power of resources and making money. Granted, it might be people who live in other places and you have to kind of get on calls at random hours or travel to visit them, or they're going to be in town and you got to meet them. And then you're going to have Jupiter trine your moon. So yeah, that sextile is going to be kind of going like all year. Inheritance can be Jupiter trine your 8th house moon. This is other people, Jupiter going to rest, their resources, trine your moon, home, property, that kind of stuff, especially that comes from like women in your family. Yeah. But I also think that, you know, in the love department, you know, Venus going through your sign, great. Relationships is going to deal more with Jupiter, but here's Jupiter in the 12th. So some of these people that you end up meeting through work and business might kind of like try to wine and dine you. So there's some kind of connection there of you guys together, you know, possibly meeting in private, connecting, traveling, having dinner, like doing these things. But you're going to see lots of foreigners and lots of people who are going to like want to be, you know, meeting evenings and like kind of connecting. That's the vibe that I'm getting. And you're coming into your Venus return pretty soon. So that's going to be more maybe like love on the road. Maybe lots of contracts, phone calls, negotiations, talking to people. Being that you're one of those people that's going to have Venus retrograde, pay attention. By the end of July, Venus is already in shadow, and it's going to be showing you like where there may be more than one person that you're dealing with, or like maybe somebody who's coming back to you. And then long-term wise, Jupiter is going to square your Venus. So that does make me feel like you're going to have your options. You don't necessarily need to be like telling everybody that you're, you know, settling down with one particular person. It's not like playing the field. It's just more keeping your options open and being cautious about telling people that you're with somebody, or being cautious to tell people that, you know, you're, you know, seeing other people. There is going to be a sense of like wanting to keep some of this stuff to yourself. And I could see lots of conversations via phone or text with romantic partners because they might be somewhere else or having to travel to go and see them. All right, so that's the other way that that can kind of play out. And I do see some energy changing, possibly around your living situation at the end of summer, because you're going to have so many damn retrogrades in your third and in your fourth. It's either that or you're going to be like dealing with some kind of like documents relating to inheritance, and then considering whether or not you move and you have to talk to a relative about signing something. Something like that could definitely go on, especially with Mercury trine your moon. What else? When is your birthday's coming up here soon too? So we're going to have a full moon, a new moon that's going to be on your birthday. So around your birthday, just after your birthday, there's going to be a new moon in your second house, which is all about planting seeds in regards to money, finances, and resources. And that's also right when Venus is stationing. So to me, it looks like you're going to be making some big decisions about money and investing, or getting ready to make a big purchase, or getting ready to plan a trip or something like that right around your birthday time. So focus on setting intentions revolving around abundance. The new moon right after your birthday, especially with the trine and Neptune, do something like involving like shells and water, or maybe like take a salt bath and like write all your intentions out, because it's about making that stuff physically come to fruition. But relationship stuff more, you'll see that further on. We got to get closer into like Gemini season, and when all these planets are kind of dancing in your 12th house, trining your moon, and also Uranus and Pluto, expect big changes emotionally and also potentially with your home and your family. Okay, hopefully that's helpful. I got Steph and Maritza, so let's see if you guys are here, because I don't think I skipped anybody. So did you guys pay on PayPal? Maritza. I can't see. So Steph paid on PayPal. Stephanie Medina, is that your name? Because if that's your name, I already did your reading. You're going to have to go and find it. It's going to be after Abby. And Maritza, you were the one who wanted to get the surgery, and you were asking questions about getting a surgery in Miami, and you gave me July 10th or October 2nd. And I said, I don't like any of them. So you're gonna have to go and find the reading. It's gonna be after my conversation with Amy. I apologize, but I don't have the time codes because I can't do the playback because we're still live. So you circle back. But to make a long story short, I gave you my perspective on the dates, and I was asking you what you were doing the surgery on, which I'm still kind of curious about, because it looked like it was something connected to like either maybe stomach or breast. I'm not sure. But be very careful with the transits in July, because it's right before Venus goes retrograde. So it could take longer to heal, and you may not like the results, and there may be a sense of like changing something too dramatically too quickly. The transits of the 3 are better in the fall, but I give you more dates in like November that I personally think is better astrology. Okay. But yeah, I got you guys. Don't worry. You were in there. So you have to go and find the people. You guys are going to be kind of like right around each other. Mommy makeover, tummy and boobs. Okay, so just recommendation, don't do it over the summer, okay? Because you're doing areas that I think it's going to be too dramatic, and I think that it's not the best time with Venus in shadow to be doing it. So go and try and do it in the fall. I looked at your third date and I gave you a couple other options. Okay? Thank you guys so much for hanging with me tonight. I know it was like a longer one. We've got Sunday astro weather is coming out. The astrology for the next week is brutal. So check out the video on Sunday. I talk all about the T-squares and why it's so significant with Mars going through Leo. And if you guys want to join my Venus retrograde webinar, Venus retrograde in Leo, I'm doing in June. I'm offering $15 off if you guys want to pay to sign up for that early. So please do consider. And otherwise, I will let you guys get back to the rest of your weekend. Have a happy Friday night, and I will see you guys very soon. Take care.